Hello, good morning, and welcome to this Horizon Europe Implementation Day on Grant Agreement Preparation. My name is Peter HAERTWICH. I am a head of unit in the European Commission's Directorate General for Research and Innovation. Today's Implementation Day is one in a series of implementation days that we hold in regular intervals. We had an implementation day last week on the basis of proposal submission and evaluation. And we will have another implementation day on managing your grant that will take place on the 3rd of April. On top of it, we will also have a special dedicated webinar to talk about the lump sum project funding, and this webinar will take place on the 27th of March. So this is just by way of indicating other opportunities for getting information about Horizon Europe funding. Coming back to today's agenda, we will have a series of presentations. Each of the presentations will be followed by a questions and answers session. You can ask your questions in Slido. So if you open a separate browser window, go to slide.do and then put in the code of today's meeting, which is HID, standing for Horizon Implementation Day. And there you will be able to put your questions at any moment in time, and we will collect them and answer them after each presentation. Please also look at the questions that are already there, and if you see that some of these questions that are already there are of your interest too, and you like them, please put the thumbs up, and we will then go through the list of questions in the order of number of likes, so that we have at least the time to reply to the most popular questions. You can ask your question anonymously, but we would actually ask you to indicate who you are, giving us the possibility to have a feeling from whom and possibly also from which organization these questions come. But again, no obligation. You can also stay anonymous if you want. So the sessions will start with an overview of the process of grant agreement preparation given by my colleague Petros BELSIS. Then we will have another presentation explaining the requirements for validating your legal entity in case it is not yet done, given by colleagues from the respective service in the research executive agencies. Then we will have a session explaining in more detail how the scientific technical description of the project, the so-called Annex 1 to your grant agreement, has to be redrafted and changed in comparison to what you sent into the proposal. And finally, we will have a presentation by colleagues from our legal unit about the legal and financial aspects of the grant agreement, and also to give you already some hints on how to avoid common errors in the financial management of your grant. The session will be recorded like all our implementation days and will then be made available on our events page on the Funding and Tenders portal, where you also can find all the other sessions that had already taken place, including the ones that I mentioned at the beginning. With this, I finish my introduction. I hand over directly to my colleague Petros BELSIS for the first presentation. Petros, over to you.
Thank you, Peter. Hello and good morning. Welcome to our event. We will start with the first presentation, which concerns the GAP agreement preparation. And we will give an overview of the process and some key, let's say, things to have in mind. We will also have later a detailed more also on the screens and how-to implementation for the IT. So there is a complementary presentation that goes together for the GAP later. Will be given by a colleague of mine. So Of course, you are kindly asked to place your questions if you have concerning the presentation or anything unknown, so we will answer at the end. A short outline of the presentation. So we will start with the introduction to the grant agreement preparation process, the key concepts. We will give you an overview of things that you have to do concerning the setting up of the roles and giving access to the persons who will need to perform specific actions in the tool. We will explain one detail that is that has changed, a new requirement in Horizon Europe. Many of you who have participated already, maybe you are already aware, but we will also show you how to comply with this requirement. And then we will give a short overview of some technical aspects that you need to take care in order to start correctly the preparation for the grant agreement signature. So, in order to start the preparation for the grant agreement, you have already passed, let's say, the first steps in the life cycle of a project. Here, if you see, we have the whole overview of the life cycle of the project, which starts from the preparation and publication of a call, then the submission, the preparation of your proposal, the submission, the evaluation, and once we reached at the level of concluding to the ranking list, which means the top, let's say, performing projects, then there is a selection based also on the budget availability. So the ones that have received the highest score and there is available funding, they are the ones which are selected, which later receive an invitation letter to start the preparation for the signature of the grant agreement. And in order, of course, to succeed in receiving the grant, you have also to prepare and comply with a few things, because although if you see here in the overall life cycle of the project, the preparation of the grant agreement is, let's say, short in time. It has a specific time limit, which we will explain also. It's not very long, it's 3 months approximately, but it is a very essential one because without, let's say, succeeding in completing all the tasks that we will explain, you still don't have a grant signed, and of course you cannot start the project. So important in one aspect, but of course not very difficult, and that's why we are here to explain. So from the moment you receive the notification, there are a number of tasks that are starting to happen. You need to start also performing, and there are also tasks that we will explain that are happening in the background. So they are performed also on the commission side from the specific officers which are assigned. The project officer is the one that you see, but there are also other people who are performing specific tasks in order for you to reach the signature of the grant, which is the milestone, let's say, of having and starting a grant. Once everything is done and the signature is granted from both sides, from you and from us, then of course we proceed to starting the project implementation. You receive also a big amount of the one that is awarded to you as a pre-financing, so that you can start implementing the task together with the partners that participate in the project. So the main principles, we have established a single gateway for all the exchanges, which is the funding and tenders portal, which is quite common to you, of course, if you have submitted or you already, even for the events that you are participating like this one, everything is in the portal. So there is a one-stop shop containing all the information and all the support that you need in order to have, let's say, to correctly perform the tasks. So there is a deep integration. There are quite many IT tools behind, but to you that is transparent. So all of them, they are integrated. So you see only the portal. So even when you navigate from the management of your organization to the grant management tool or something else, to you that is transparent. So you see similar screens, but you just, okay, in the background, you don't, this does not concern you. There are tools different, but they are all integrated through the portal. So we have established a quite uniform experience for you. The design of the screens, the implementation of the rules, there are common business processes when you traverse across different, let's say, tools in order to manage different things concerning your organization or your projects. Everything is transparent to you and the same rules apply everywhere. And another also achievement of this, let's say, design is that we have already established a fully electronic management of all the business process flows. So what does this mean in simple words? We have electronic sealing of the documents, digital sealing, which means that once they are finalized, they are stamped, they cannot be altered by anyone, either you or us, and they have the validity like in the traditional, let's say, management of documents when they are signed by blue ink signature. And in addition to that, not only they are sealed, but they are also digitally signed. So we have achieved the signature by electronic means, which means that for you, you don't have to sign anything anymore. But everything is managed, all the signatures are done by just clicking a specific button for you and for your organization, depending on it is for a project or for organizational based tasks. So we have replaced blue ink signature. There are very few exceptions. For example, if there are specific type of partners, like if you have an affiliated entity, which participate through, let's say, the beneficiary, which are linked with, but since the affiliated entities do not, let's say, sign specifically the grant, in that case, there are some documents that will be required to be uploaded on behalf of through the beneficiary on behalf of the affiliated entity. So there are very few exceptions, mainly because the people that have to sign this kind, let's say, the few people that have to use the blue ink signature, they don't have access to the portal for other reasons. So we have also established a single and the common repository. So all the documents concerning your organization, the projects that you have managed, the different processes, the information you received, the notifications, everything is archived and kept in a specific repository. So you can access them again through the portal. Another important aspect is that we have full traceability and audit trail ensured. So we can record who, let's say, who person or task or role of the organization and person also linked to the account performed which task and when. That's why also we will remind you, also having different presentations also refer to that task, that when you have a role, for example, when you have a person who is signing documents legal on behalf of the organization, so they can be assigned by the legal representative to sign specific documents. So please try to create, let's say, different accounts, different roles, and assign them the same task, because it is important for you also to know if somebody signed a document to see who did it. So you can do the same by not reusing accounts, but you can create multiple accounts and assign to different persons this role, so that you always know who signed, for example, a specific document for a project. Otherwise, you still know the role, but you don't know who of the person who are using it. So a reminder, please don't try not to reuse the accounts, but try to create separate accounts for different persons using the, let's say, this role, and then you can assign to them the same privileges if they need to perform similar tasks. We also have all the business rules, as I said, predefined and applicable through the different tools, for example, the submission tool, the grant management tool. So when there is a rule specific for a specific type of project, this is uniform and applicable throughout the different tools that, of course, as I said, integrated through the portal. Now, the grant agreement preparation, or GAP, let's say in short, so if you see the acronym, if we use through the presentation, it is just that, you know, for space reasons. But if you see it, this means grant agreement preparation, and GA is grant agreement for short. So it is a time-bound process. There are specific rules imposed by the financial regulation of the Commission. So for all, let's say, the projects which receive EU funding. So the grant agreement preparation and the conclusion of it, so until the signature, it is bound by specific deadlines from the regulation and the financial regulation of the Commission. So it has to be concluded in 8 months from the time that the call has closed. So for the moment that the last, let's say, submission is allowed of a proposal, then in 8 months we need to have a grant signature ready for all the projects that are selected. Which means also that within this time there is also a complex process to evaluate all the proposals received, and this time of the 8 months is split in 5 months for the evaluation and information to the people who participate about the result, which means that the 3 months that remain are devoted to prepare the grant agreement and then sign it in this time. So there are a few exceptions concerning the actions of the ERC, the European Research Council, because of also the modalities of the evaluation. But okay, this always depending on the type of action. When you receive the invitation letter, you will be informed of the deadlines that are applicable in the process. So when you receive the invitation letter, you receive also specific instructions. You need to be prepared and align yourself with the applicable deadlines that are mentioned in the letter, and you should try to make all the possible efforts in order to comply with these deadlines. Now, if there are, let's say, in the course of this process, there are some difficulties specific to you, to your setting, or let's say to consortium, or in general also, it could be that there is a very extreme, let's say, situation, then in that case, you need to notify the project officer, and also you need to try to find also ways that you propose in order to bypass, let's say, this difficult situation if it arrives. You need also to be aware that non-respecting of the deadlines may lead to termination of grant preparation. So even though you were invited, it could happen that in case you don't, let's say, comply with the deadlines, that you can end up in a difficult situation to not be awarded the grant. Of course, as I said again, if you cooperate and there are also, this is not always, how could I say, 100% strict rule, because there could be specific reasons to explain why there was a delay in the process. But this should be very exceptional, and you should also have in mind that you should not, let's say, count on that there could be granted an exception, because there are specific cases only that this could be done. So it's better to be on the safe side and try to do whatever possible, try to be reactive, so that you don't end up in the difficult situation to have been invited to sign a grant and not receive it, not have been awarded. Now, here is another, let's say, more specific diagram on the grant agreement preparation timing. Which means that these 3 months that you have been, let's say, assigned to prepare for the grant, well, the clock starts by receiving the invitation. You receive also evaluation summary report with some comments from the reviewers, the 3 reviewers that are assigned to review your project, and then you should start already from that time. You will see also that there are also parallel tasks that we will explain that are going on concerning, let's say, the validation of the participants. But concerning the preparation of the grant agreement, you should start to enter the data in the tool, in the grant management tool. So you will need to, some of them, they will be already automatically visible in the tool coming from the proposal when they are coming from structure tables of the proposal, but then you will need also to fill some other data, and for that we also have a later representation that you will be guided also through that. So you need to start filling the data. In 3 weeks you should have completed the first, let's say, round. You can already submit for evaluation to the project officer. Normally the project officer should reply within 1 week and tell you what is missing and what should be corrected. And then with one or two, let's say, still exchanges or a small ping pong, if I could say that, normally for the vast majority of the cases, the grant agreement data are already completed, and they can submit it for the final, let's say, approval and signature of the grant. So if you count here the amount that I already described, so it's 3 plus 4 plus 2, 6 weeks. But we said we have 3 months maximum. So why are we just not using the full time? This is very important for you also to try to be as fast as possible, because in specific cases concerning the, let's say, if it is a grant amount that you will receive, the funding is above a specific amount. In Horizon Europe, it is 2.5 million. So if you receive a specific amount of money, what we call, let's say, the big projects, in terms of funding, of course, because it could be also in terms of composition of consortium, which does not count as a factor. But if you also perform research that is subject to ethics review, so if you are doing research on embryonic stem cells or human embryos, etc., or whatever is subject to ethics or security also restrictions, then that has to go through another process additional for the approval, which needs to be approved by the member states. So there is the program committee with representatives of member states and associated partners. So because there is also this additional, let's say, step of approval from the member states, that means that you need to give time. It takes at least 1 month, 3 to 4 weeks to have a meeting and prepare everything for the approval. In which case, it means that you shouldn't try to consume all the time, because you could end up in a situation, as I said, that the program committee will not have the time to approve your project, and then you cannot respect the signature. That's why, as I said, it's very important to be as reactive as possible and try to comply with all the requests and the changes that are requested by you, so that you can submit the data for the signature of the grant as soon as possible. In any case, you can end up, of course, in signing the grant even before 3 months. The sooner, the better for you also. So now, if we decompose the different steps that are, let's say, taking part in this grant agreement preparation process, starting from the invitation of the grant preparation, then receiving the letter, then you start entering, as I said, the data, but at the same time you receive the participants, the beneficiaries to be, because they are not yet beneficiaries, but the potential beneficiaries, they are the ones that are not yet validated. They will receive an invitation to start submitting documents for the validation by the Central Validation Service. So, as you know, there is a requirement that when you receive funding from the Commission, the organization needs to be verified for the status, for the all the legal documents and everything to assign this. We have directly afterwards a presentation to explain all the steps and how. Then you need also, I will explain also in detail in a while, you need to start setting specific roles in the tool to assign access management roles. And that has to be done for each beneficiary. So there are people who will have to perform specific tasks, like signing legal documents, signing financial documents later. And in order to be ready to sign the grant, you need to set up all these roles. Also, a very essential step is the signature of the Declaration of Honor. So this is a document that contains specific statements that you have to do. It's an official statement. For example, that you have not been in an exclusion situation, so that you have not been convicted by fraud or other things, that you respect all the statements of the grant and everything. This is a document that is very essential. First, of course, the coordinator has to sign very early this, but each beneficiary, before you sign the grant, has to sign this declaration. Actually, it takes just a moment. It has to be done by clicking just a button, but it is a very important step, an electronic signature of the Declaration of Honor. Then, as we said, you start entering the data that are needed. So there are additional tables. There are others that will be already pre-filled by the data that you have in the proposal. Others that we need to be already complemented if they are already filled. And then, as we said, there is a kind of iteration. So there could be changes that are required by the project officer. You will have to comply with them. And once everything is done and the data are correct, you will be able to submit the data for signature. On the same time, on the background is something that you don't see, that we are also performing specific checks. We need to reserve the funds. Of course, they need to be committed so that they are available for you to start the project and later be paid. And the award decision, which is the document has to be signed also by the Commission in order for all the grants, needs to be prepared. So everything. So what I wanted to say here is that there is also work that is done in the background that you don't see. So it's not only that you fill the data, you sign, and it's over. So there are things that once all they are completed, then the coordinator on behalf of the consortium signs the agreement. The Commission, the project officer or the authorizing officer signs the signature on behalf of the EU. And of course, that means from that moment on, it is effective. But in order to, let's say, because the coordinators signed the grant agreement, so also the beneficiaries, they have also to sign what we call the accession forms, which means that they also accept the conditions and terms, and they can then take part in the project, and they agree with what was signed in the grant. Once that is done, normally you receive a big amount, let's say, of the awarded EU funding. So you receive what we call the pre-financing, so that you can start performing the tasks assigned. So the pre-financing goes directly to the coordinator, but then the coordinator has to distribute with no further delays to the beneficiaries that participate in the action. Another principle that we have in the grant agreement preparation is that we don't have, well, it was the case in the older, let's say, frameworks, but from Horizon 2020 and on, and Horizon Europe, we have what we call the non-negotiation. This means that your proposal is taken as is. So we consider proposals that are evaluated based on their merit and not on their potential. What does this mean? We don't tell you that we will fund you if you do also that. So there is no kind of, let's say, intervention. You might receive some comments from the reviewers to do, let's say, improvements in the process. If you want, you can accept them or not, but you are not obliged, which means that because we have a very competitive evaluation process, we consider all the projects that will be awarded as quite mature to be taken as they are. So nobody is asking you to do extra things. If you want, you think that one comment from or more comments from the reviewers are worth while, let's say, considering, you can do it, but you are not obliged to do. So even the project officer cannot oblige you to do additional things. Now, the grant agreement is prepared on the basis of the proposal which was submitted and selected for funding. Of course, this does not mean that you should never do any kind of changes, because there are some changes that may be necessary. For example, if there is changes that are required to meet legal and financial requirements. For example, let's say that we find out during the validation that an organization has a different status. You know, they are not public, or they are not they are for profit or not for profit. This could, let's say, have an impact in the funding rate, because the for-profit organizations, they receive 70%, while the non-profit. It's just an example. I mean, I'm just telling you that there could be changes that are required for you to do, and in that case, you will have to comply. So it could be also that if your project is dealing with specific type of research and you have ethics issues, or also security issues, if your research has, let's say, is in this direction, so then you will be going through an additional process of ethics screening, and then the experts who are in this area, they might add for you some deliverables. As I said also, if considering the case, it could also be subject to approval from the program committee. So the ethics is and the security also is important when is a dimension that comes in your research, and for that you have always to comply. So it's not something that you negotiate. Now there are specific cases. This is more sensitive. If a participant is removed, for example, they do not want to participate anymore, this is a change that has to be agreed with the EU because, as you understand, it could jeopardize the potential of the consortium to deliver. So if you, for some reason, you have to explain why the participant does not want to take part anymore in the project. Well, if there are specific reasons or, that, of course, excuse this kind of change, and you propose either to redistribute the task or to add another participant, that has to be also agreed by the EU because it could violate, let's say, the equal treatment of the reviewing of the other proposals. Now, there could be also clerical errors or obvious inconsistencies, like a typo that, instead of mentioning one number, you mention something else that obviously doesn't make sense. Of course, that change you could do in the description of the action and it could be accepted. So the fact that there is no negotiation does not mean that there are no controls also on our side. So there could be also eligibility checks, which means that, if an organization is not compliant with the requirements, for example, of the call, then in that case, of course, we are not obliged to fund the proposal. Also, there are anti-fraud measures and risk-based controls that are carried out before the grant agreement signature, and also the result of them is also binding for both you and us. So, what you have to keep here in mind is that you have to be aware that non-compliance or any serious breach or negligence of the applicable rules can evoke the termination of the grant and the rejection of the proposal. But okay, these are, let's say, exceptional cases. They don't happen often. It could be also the case that happen. But so now, the next step. In order to prepare for the signature of the grant agreement, another, let's say, important task that has to be taken care of is to set up correctly the roles in the tool, so the identity and access management process. So every organization that participates in a funding project, they need to have at least one legal representative, or in short, LEAR. That you will be asked to assign from the beginning when you receive the invitation. As I said, you also receive almost at the same time, or with a very short time lapse before or after the invitation of the letter, you receive the invitation to start the validation of the participants for the ones that are not yet validated. The first thing that you have to do is to appoint, so the management of the organization needs to appoint the legal representative. Now, the LEAR needs to nominate also some roles. We have for example, we need to have also a participant contact. So the most important ones, of course, is the one for the coordinator. It is the person who submitted the proposal. This one is already present in the tool. So you need to have a contact person for all the beneficiaries that participate. Then you need to have also, so there is the primary coordinator contact, which is the participant contact on behalf of the coordinator, and then you have one participant contact per beneficiary, and the LEAR needs to assign also one person to sign legal documents for this organization and for this project, of course, later, and one at least financial signatory, which means one person which will be responsible for signing the financial declarations for this organization. Now, based on what we call a chain of trust, so delegation of further tasks, we have only on one LEAR per organization, but then they can create legal persons that have this legal signatory status or financial signatory, and then you will need to set up one person from this pool, let's say, of roles to sign for your project the legal and financial documents. They are all managed by EU login, so you need to create per person a EU login account, and then the LEAR can assign you whatever role, let's say, as legal signatory or financial signatory. So now, in short, the task that you have to perform the roles that we just described. So when we start the grant agreement and you receive the invitation letter, as we said, the first thing is that you start entering the data, but on the same task very early, the coordinator first has to sign the declaration of honor, otherwise they will be blocked. And the beneficiaries, what you see here is that the legal signature, it has also a P in front of that. It means that from the legal signatories or the person assigned the role, you need to select at least one that will be working in your project. So you need to define, so the participant contact needs to define from the legal signatories available, one person that will sign legal documents for their project, and also the same for each beneficiary. So you need to sign the declaration of honor, and then once the grant agreement the data are reviewed and agreed with the project officer, the legal signatory for this project again can sign the grant agreement on behalf of the coordinator, and later, and since that moment, let's say the grant is valid, but before also starting the implementation of the project, the beneficiaries need to accept by signing also what we call the succession forms. So these are more or less the roles. They are essential to be defined in the tool. When we call about role-based, so it's not person-based. So you can assign all the roles to one person. So if there is a small organization, the leader can do also the legal signatory and project signatory even for all the projects. Now, in bigger organizations, we understand the leader cannot perform all these tasks, so they can define additional persons to work and assist with this role. It depends on your setting, but there are no limitations. So one person can have multiple roles and perform different tasks. An additional requirement now that has been for Horizon Europe projects, this, of course, yes, I have to make clear that this, although it is required for this type of organization that we will explain, it is a task that you, if you are just a person involved in the project, you need to ask your leader to comply if, again, you fall into this condition. So, by explaining first, in Horizon Europe, specific organizations, which can be either beneficiaries or affiliated entities that have this status, either they are public bodies, research institutions, public and private, and higher and secondary education institutions, both public and private, which are settled in member states or associated countries. They need to have a gender equality plan in order to participate in the grant. So this is, let's say, the eligibility criteria. Usually, as you know, they are checked in during the proposal stage, but this is one that we give some extra time, so it is checked later during the grant agreement signature, before signature. So we check if you also comply with that criteria. Again, I have to remind you that it is a requirement only if the organization is public body, if it is a research institution, which means that your primary focus is research. For example, if you are a hospital, a university hospital, the primary, although there is research performed within the university, the hospitals, their primary task is taking care, let's say, providing healthcare to people. So your secondary task is research, so you can consider that you are not bound in this case. If you are, though, focusing primarily on research and secondary and other things, and you are having declared in the participant portal in the organization management that you are a research, you select to modify organization, you go to the legal data information, and then you try to edit legal information and to select the gender equality plan and define if you have yes or no. Now, it's not only that. So if you say yes, you have to add some answers to a specific questionnaire, because the gender equality plan needs to fulfill some necessary criteria, obligatory. The first ones, the first four are obligatory. So, for example, when you say I have a gender equality plan, you need to answer yes, that I have the document and it is made public. And also some other questions like having assigned the specific personnel, you have resources, human resources assigned to, let's say, managing and implementing the actions related to that. You collect data and statistics and you give trainings. And of course, also some other optional questions. Now, if you answer no to one of the obligatory questions, then immediately the flag will be set to no. So you need to define at least that you have the 4 minimum. And then, of course, it's set up to yes. Now, I just have to make a small remark here. So please be transparent to that. Don't try just to comply with the statement in the tool, because it is, as we said, a criterion that is eligibility criterion, and it has also the form of a declaration, legal declaration. So if you are found to not comply with the requirements, then there are consequences. And there are already some checks done in specific universities by specific selections from all different countries, from all different type of organizations. And okay, unfortunately, we have found some that were not compliant, and now they are, let's say, in the difficult case of having to face consequences. It's just a reminder. I think in most of the cases, of course, we should not count on that, but we just have to make a reference. Now, a very brief introduction, because we have a very detailed one. So, how you manage your project in order to prepare for the grant. When you enter again, as we said in the portal, you have here everything, your organization, the proposal, the projects. Now you will see the project that has appeared. If you are ready to start preparing for the grant agreement signature, you select Manage Project and you enter in a tool where many, let's say, you start seeing already the processes that have been completed, or you will see the ones that are subject to being prepared. In this case, for example, here you have to select grant agreement data preparation. So you will enter here to prepare the grant agreement data. You see also you have the declaration of honor that you will need to sign. You have all the documents that are related to this process, communications that maybe you exchange with the project officer, and the history. Here on the left, of course, you will have the information for, well, maybe you have more than one project or not, the latest legal data for your organization, active processes, all the documents that are related to the project will be kept here. And of course, you can have also archive processes. There is a button, I shouldn't stay a lot here, but just be careful. This is if you want to initiate a termination of the grant. So it's very exceptional if you do not want anymore to proceed for some reasons to the signature of the grant. And also, just to explain that you will have here always for the processes that are ongoing or completed, this what we call the metro line, which shows in which stage you are. Here you will have the button to sign the declaration, and once, for example, for the coordinator to submit the document to the EU. Not all buttons sometimes are available to the beneficiaries, because there are some actions that are performed by the coordinator. Again, I will not stand here to this screen more, because it's just how you see when you enter in the grant management tool. Again, you start from the portal, but then it's just a legend of the icon. So if you have a tab to fill data and it has the green tick, everything is okay. There could be in some tabs this warning, the yellow. There are tabs which are only for information, for example, the legal data of the organization. You don't have to do anything there. And if there is a missing information and it's red X, that means that that step is already blocking, and you will need to take actions in order to complete or correct the data. So concluding, what are the points to have in our mind, let's say, after leaving this presentation? One important thing is that we often, let's say, are asked is, where can I find answers? I have some questions. So concerning eligibility or other, let's say, specific conditions, you will see in the work program documents, for example, the eligibility of the countries that can participate and all that, or other call, let's say, specific conditions. you can already, when you enter let's say the preparation of the grant agreement, you see in the grant agreement all the different articles. But if you go to what we call the AGA, the annotated grant agreement, there are usually explanations below each article, and you can, of course, always, it is strongly suggested to advise the AGA. Then, if you have specific questions of legal or other nature that you would like to have, you of course you can reach also the project officer once you are in a grant, but there is also in the help let's say area in the portal, the request inquiry service, where they will be able to reply to you either directly or they will forward to the specific, let's say, specialized personnel to give you answers. You also have the IT help desk concerning IT, let's say, issues. And of course, you can always liaise with the national contact points, the NCP networks. There is always a list of national contact points in the portal. Now, when you prepare the grant agreement, avoid repetition, so do not duplicate, let's say, data between different tables and the narrative part. You should know that ethics and security requirements are obligatory, so you should comply. You should accept that a new task could be added to your, let's say, deliverables. You should do the changes if you are asked by the experts that are reviewing the ethics or security. And also, please try to pay attention to deadlines and be reactive. Do not, let's say, hesitate to ask if you want something, but try to provide feedback as soon as possible. In case you find some problems, be transparent and try to bring up also to try to propose counter, let's say, solutions. And the project officer is there to collaborate with you, so you need always to contact them. So that's it. Thank you for your attention, and of course, we can now go to the questions.
Thank you very much, Petros. My name is Manuel Romaris. I'm training coordinator for Horizon Europe, and I will guide you through the different sections today of this webinar. We have quite a lot of questions for you, Petros. We cannot still see them on the screen here. First question, our project officer in a grant agreement preparation is asking us to make a lot of purely stylistic semantic changes. How to react to that?
Well, although I understand it could be tiring or annoying, I think that it does also depend on the persons, and I don't know. I understand. Okay, there could be stylistic changes; they are annoying to you, but I would say that please try to do it. I mean, it's not a reason to, how could I say, to come into disagreement with the project officer. Of course, you could express in a nice way that. Of course, if they are insisting and asking more and more, you could just try to say that, please, can we also conclude? We have the time. But I don't think it deserves, how could I say, more effort on your side. You shouldn't invest time in, let's say, creating tensions. If I were you, I would try to do the changes and try to politely, indicate if these changes continue to appear. To just also explain to the project officer that we are interested in advancing with the work. What you are explaining here, okay, you could do it easily, I think. Okay, I understand though that it could be annoying, but what else to say? I don't know.
Thank you. The project officer demanded the consortium agreement to be signed before the end of the GAP phase. Is this normal?
Well, as you know, the signature of the consortium agreement is a requirement before signing the project. So you should try. It's also for your interest. I mean, if you cannot conclude in agreeing between the consortium on important things before the signature, it will be even more difficult if you are at the later stage. The signature of the consortium agreement is a requirement. We don't require you to see, to submit it so that we inspect the consortium agreement, but you should try to conclude the sooner possible. Now, I don't know why it seems that you have reached like a dead end also with the project officer, so if you end up in risking, let's say, terminating the project, that will also require, let's say, a second kind of consultation. So again, it is difficult to say what is the problem, but you should try to resolve the issues within the consortium before starting the action. That is, of course, a requirement. So you please try to resolve any issues and create. How can you agree, for example, in the IPR, if I could say just an example, who will own the IPR produced by the project once you are at the end of the project? It would be even difficult. So it is in your benefit also to have settled all these things.
Thank you. Next question, I think, is from the same person. Our project officer asked us to add 15 new deliverables to the grant agreement preparation. We did not plan resources for this, but were forced to make the addition. Is this normal?
To add 15 new deliverables, well, as I think we explained, look, now for individual cases to be submitted, if you want to be reviewed, you will have to go through the request inquiry service and they will be forwarded. Now, to the extent that I can try to help you here by answering the question, as we said, we don't have this kind of negotiation. So I don't know why you are asked to add 15 deliverables. But as I explained, there are some specific deliverables, for example, that are required by all projects, like the dissemination exploitation plan, the data management plan. Also, I don't know if this 15 refers, because as you know, the data management plan needs to be updated. So if your project officer has decided that instead of submitting one and reviewing it, you submit 4 versions of this deliverable, then I think, maybe you are also there not, I cannot say, I don't know by the information that you give me. But if this is the case, then okay, you should do it. If the project officer proposed to you, because anyway it will be the same deliverable updated, so you don't have exactly 15 totally new deliverables. If this is the case, so based on the information I see, I can just tell you if there are deliverables on the content or the task that you have to perform. It's difficult to say more, but I'm just explaining to you that if this is the case, that these deliverables that are standard part, instead of submitting one and then rejecting it or opening it for revision, you have to deliver 5 times the new version, then I think you can do it. I mean, it's not even a big task. But this is what I can say. If you think there is something else that you should not accept, then you go to the research inquiry service and submit the specific details of your project so that it can be evaluated.
Thank you. The next question. Can a partner who doesn't have a gender equality plan prepare one during the gap phase or proceed without one? With some non-EU partner, we face issues with the grant agreement preparation.
As I said, well, I will explain to you now. Well, I understand sometimes also the project officers are trying to collaborate, but this is an eligibility criterion that started even before starting the project, the Horizon Europe program, the program in itself. So in 2020, when we announced that, we gave also an extension until 2020-21. And then even, as I said, we don't apply it as the regular eligibility criteria, which means we block submission. We don't allow you to go to the evaluation, but we give you also time to have it until gap. So of course, if you are ready before the signature of the gap, it is okay. So you have also, let's say 3 times, if I could say, time to be prepared. Now, to proceed without one, no, because if you define in the participant portal no, then the project officer should not allow you to do it. If now you shouldn't also define that you have if you don't have, because this is also a risk for you. You can end up in difficult situations and sanctions. Now, I don't know what is the nature that some non-EU partners, actually, as I said, if these EU partners receive funding, so if they are associated countries, in that case, you need to have one. If they are from countries that are not associated and they just participate without funding as associated partners status, then they don't sign the grant and they don't need to have one. But if you are associated countries and you are receiving funding, always you need to have one. Yeah.
Thank you. We are already in overtime, so let's go with the last questions. The PO sets unrealistic deadlines, 24 hours, for implementing substantial changes to the description of action, which do require liaising with some partners in the whole consortium. Is this okay?
Yes, I will try to give you a specific. Well, I don't know. With 24 hours, maybe it's a little extreme. But as I explained before, because we have been also asked sometimes for this question, there are the ethics reviews. So if there is a screening for ethics, and you need to have an additional deliverable or to do a change, to remove a task or something, do like that. As I said, we have the 3 times limit. Then you need to prepare very soon the data, because the program committee that, let's say, meets every once a month, they need to submit in cases you are subject to ethics. So if the program committee or also the ethics reviewers add a change important in the description of the action, then you need to comply. Now, if you say, okay, but why I was waiting for 1 month and nothing happened, and suddenly they tell me to do a change very fast, this is the reason. It's not that, there was no reactivity. Maybe you don't see it, but it is in the background. But you need to comply. Now, again, as I said, with the description that you give me, it is an example that I can explain why you could have a short deadline. I don't know now if it is 24 hours or more or less. This could be very extreme situations. So you need, though, to be aware that, of course, this specific type of changes, or security also scrutiny, can impose you a change that you would have to do it in short time frame. I understand, of course, if it is less than 24 hours or something like that, it could be very extreme. But yes, the answer is in principle there are specific reasons why you might be asked to do it within a short time frame.
Thank you very much, Petros. We have to continue now. Sorry for that. And the next speech is about legal validation and financial capacity assessment. We have 2 colleagues for that speech, Florin PUIU, who is around here in the studio. But first, I think we are starting with Elin SIDZHIMOV, that is remotely from his office. Elin, are you there?
Yes, hello.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Please.
Good morning, everyone. Should I share the presentation, or you do it from the studio?
We do it from the studio.
Yes, thank you.
So
thank you very much.
When we have to switch slides.
I will, yes. So today with my colleague Florin PUIU, we are going to, my name is Elin SIDZHIMOV, and we are going to introduce you to the legal validation and financial capacity assessment aspects, and who we are in the Central Validation Service and what we do. On the first slide that you see, this is a brief introduction to the main task within the portfolio of Central Validation Service in a research executive agency. So we verify legal existence and legal statuses of the entities. Of all of this, I will go a little bit more in details, but briefly to tell you that we basically need to know that you are currently existing and under what legal form and what's your status. And we are also responsible for the validation of the appointment of the legal entity appointed representatives, or the LEARs, as you know them. We also perform any validation of legal changes that might occur for entities that are already validated, and do assessments for universal takeovers, or the so-called UTROs of validated entities. These are universal transfer of rights and obligations. So when one entity ceases to exist, and the whole portfolio of tasks and obligations, rights and obligations, goes to another entity, the different types of mergers. We are also responsible for encoding the bank account requests when this is needed, the financial capacity assessment that my colleague Florin will explain to you in details in the second part of the presentation, For specific programs, we also perform ownership control analysis, and also specific ex post status verifications, for example, SME and mid-cap status checks. So this is a brief introduction to the portfolio. Now we can go on the next slide, where you see in this metro line the validation process overview. Although you see that they're put one step after the other, keep in mind that the process starts with the registration, where you need, as an organization, to register and obtain a PIC number in the participant register. But once we receive a request for validation from the operational unit managing the call you are participating in, starts the validation process, and actually the validation, LEAR appointment, and if needed, the financial capacity assessment are happening simultaneously. So although you see them one after the other, they as soon as we receive the necessary legal documents, we start performing the assessment. The LEAR appointment, please note that it's mandatory for every participant, and the financial capacity assessment is obviously when it is needed. I already will mention once that the communication for any issues related to these topics needs to happen via the participant register from the messaging function, because like that your message reaches the actual case handler working on your specific case. So please bear that in mind. Now we can go on the next slide, where we'll start with the first part of this metro line, or the registration for a PIC number. Here you see a print screen from the participant register, and from there you'll see now on the next slide that you have actually two options. The first option is to find to search for your entity in the participant register, because it's possible that your organization already has a PIC, whether in a status declared or already valid. The second option is to register your organization from scratch. You didn't find a PIC number that belongs to your entity. And for the sake of this presentation, we are going to look at the second scenario, because you will find out that actually at some point you might need to register again for a PIC number if you have lost access to an already existing one. All the encoding of data in the register linked to LEAR appointment, registration, bank account happens via step-by-step wizards. And here you see the wizard that it's for registering your organization. On the first step, you identify your organization with legal name, VAT number, etc. Then you introduce organizational data, specific another legal information. These are linked to the specific status of your entity. And then I would like to highlight step 4, actually, which is about the authorized users. Here you have the opportunity to introduce another person with their name and email address, who, apart from the person who is registering the entity at the moment, will have access to the PIC. This will ensure business continuity in case the self-registrant who is registering the PIC at a later stage, when the validation is needed, it's not available. So we encourage normally this all the entities to have additional authorized users. And at the end, once you submit all the information that you encoded, the registration is completed and you obtain your participant identification code in a declared status. Now, so what is the we at the REA Central Validation Service verify the data that you just registered. However, this is needed only before the signature of a grant agreement or a contract. At the submission stage, just the declared status is enough. This validation in the single electronic data interchange area, or SEDIA, it's done once, and this is a big advantage, because you go through this process only once, and after that in order to sign your first grant agreement or a contract. And after that, this already encoded and validated information is reused for future participation, in no matter if it's in a grant, procurement, or contribution agreement. Our approach to all the participants, it's the same. We perform the validation on the basis of the supporting documents that are provided by you, by the entity. And we are doing it in accordance with the EU financial regulation and rules on legal entity validation, LEAR appointment, and financial capacity assessment. These are publicly available. I encourage you to have a look at the rules on legal entity validation, LEAR appointment, and financial capacity assessment, because they actually very well describe the process, and most probably will answer a lot of your question if you have any link regarding the validation or financial capacity assessment or LEAR. So the legal validation consists of two distinct actions. We already mentioned that in the beginning of the presentation, where we validate, where we need to verify whether your entity is currently existing. So that's why we request recent documents. And the second action is to see what and to verify under what legal status you exist, whether you're a public or private body, whether you're for profit or non-for-profit, and then specific legal statuses such as research organization, secondary or higher education, or international organization. You will see a little bit more of this. Now we can go on the next slide. The legal status is important because it is for specific program, it might define a specific funding rate. For example, this is often the case with non-for-profit entities, and to prove that, we need to see this to verify your legal status, that you are indeed not for profit, for example. And for some programs and calls, verifying this status, it's an eligibility criteria. For example, SME or mid-capitalization companies. Now, on the next slide, this is a little bit a few additional special legal statuses that you see. We already mentioned some of them, but there is also the non-governmental, whether you're a non-governmental organization, civil society organization, international organization, research organization. The other ones we already mentioned. Some of these statuses are self-declared, and for some of them we require proof in the legal documents. For example, for a non-profit, this is often the status, the statutes of the entity define whether it distributes or not profit. Now, on the next slide, we can already see a print screen from the Funding and Tender Opportunities portal, but after you log in with your credentials and you go to my organization, on the right-hand side, it's the action button, and from there you can go to modify organization. That's the way where you introduce any changes, encode any legal data and facts. We can go now on the next slide, and once we at the Central Validation Service receive a request for validating your entity, this triggers the validation workflow, and you receive a message which requests the submission of specific documents depending on what you have encoded as legal data. From this messages tab, you read the message, but actually to upload the documents, you will see now on the next slide that you actually need to go to the task center. This is an improvement in the system because so you receive a task that you need to complete, in this case, submission of documents. And once you complete your task, once you upload the requested documents, we receive the task as completed, and then we can proceed with the validation. Otherwise, we do not receive the notification if you do not complete your task. On the next slide, you see what actually this this means. In this case, we have requested 3 types of legal documents. You see in the status that they are requested, and once you upload them, we are notified about this. On the next slide, you can see the specific documents that you might expect to be requested to submit. The first one is the legal entity form. This is a generated template that you need to complete and re-upload, date and sign it. A VAT extract, again, not older than 12 months to ensure the this currently existing situation with your entity, and if it's not registered, a proof of VAT exemption. The same is for the registration extract. We need to it needs to be recent. For public law bodies, the documents that will be requested is law, decree, or decision with which the entity is created. For the international organizations, this is the treaty. And for non-for-profit organization, as I mentioned, usually this is non-for-profit. The profit distribution is specified in the statutes of the entity. On the next slide, we can I would like to specify a little bit on the something about the documents, particularly that they need to be firstly official. We would not accept as substitute of the official document some kind of self-declaration, even though that might be made in front of some judicial administrative authorities, notaries. No, the document actually needs to be issued by the official authorities in the country. You need to scan the original document and upload it in the participant register. And keep in mind that if in your country the official languages is not part of the EU official languages, you need to accompany the original document with a free translation in English. You might expect to receive such a request from my colleagues. So now we can go to the next part of the presentation, which is the LEAR, the role of the LEAR, this is the legal entity appointed representative, which is mandatory to be appointed in the single electronic data interchange area. What are the responsibilities of the LEAR? This is the person who notifies the EU of any changes in the legal data or status of the entity. This is they submit legal and financial documents when this is required. They manage the access rights of persons in the organization, but not at a project level. These are another type of roles. And the LEAR is also responsible for the nomination of account administrators that we will mention again. This is again to provide business continuity. As for the self-registrant, the LEAR also can appoint backups or these account administrators, and also they appoint individuals who are authorized to sign contracts and grant agreements and their amendments. These are the legal signatories, and for financial statement, these are the financial signatories. This is how you will see the bottom on the left, where it's written "Add LEAR" will appear once the validation of your entity is requested, and once you press on this button again, it will open a step-by-step wizard. Yes, on the next slide you can see it already. As the previous one, you introduce here the EU login data for the LEAR. Then the LEAR data. We can go on the next slide. Here in the LEAR data, we have highlighted that the mobile phone option, it's not mandatory, but we encourage you, if you have one, to put it here, because on this mobile phone you receive a PIN code to activate the LEAR once it's validated, and that's the quickest way to do so. Now on the next slide, you see that's the legal representative data. Here I would like to mention that the legal representative and the lawyer are not necessarily always the same person. The legal representative, this is the person who bears the ultimate right to represent the entity. This could be the president, for example, or it could be a board or other role within the organization. That's the person who represents the entity, and this is the person who has the right to appoint the lawyer. The lawyer could be the same person, but it also could be another person within the organization. For the lawyer appointment, you may expect to be requested to submit a lawyer appointment letter, which needs to be duly signed by both the legal representative and the lawyer if these are two different persons, or if it's the same person just from one of them, obviously. We need a proof of identity, ID card or a passport with a photo and signature of both legal representative and the lawyer. And the proof of empowerment of the legal representative. This is the proof that the person who is appointing the lawyer has the right to do so. Please bear in mind that the scanned version you upload, but the original lawyer appointment letter needs to be kept in the premises of the entity. Now, on the next slide, you see how the window where you upload the lawyer documents looks like. If you see on the left-hand side, just next to where it's written lawyer appointment documents, there is a small icon of a PDF document. That's where you can download the lawyer appointment letter, sign it, and after that, re-upload it in the system on the right-hand side where are the red signs, together with the other documents that we have requested. We are also, as mentioned, responsible for the bank account validation. This is in cases when it's needed. So during the grant agreement preparation, you can search whether your entity already has a valid bank account in the funding and tenders portal grant management service system. And if such account does not exist, you receive an explanatory message on how to request the bank account validation. You again need to introduce the bank account information and upload the supporting documents for the bank account validation. And once we receive that, we are going to launch the bank account validation process and inform the lawyer once the validation of the bank account is completed. It happens again with the similar type of step-by-step wizard. You can see it here. And after you complete each step and upload the documents, you can submit your request for bank account validation. Again, I would like to highlight the importance of the communication. For all this process that you saw, any questions that you might have, please use the messaging function in the participant register. Like that, this is the quickest way to resolve the issues that you might have. Now, on this slide, this is some simplified explanation of the whole process. So on the top where it's the validation starts, this is the moment where the Central Validation Service receives a request to validate your entity. Then this triggers the process, and you receive a message requesting specific documents that you need to upload. If, let's say, first follow the green path and you reply to our message and then submit the requested documents, we finalize the process by validating your entity, appointing a lawyer, and preparing the financial capacity assessment. However, if you do not reply to our messages, we send you several reminders informing you that you need to take action. If you partially upload documents, we are going to send you instruction on what supporting document is missing. And again, if you do not upload this, we are going to send several reminders to you. and in case of no reply and no documents uploaded after several reminders, the PIC becomes non-responsive, and we set it in a sleeping status in the participant register. And at this moment, we notify the operational unit, the project officers, that this particular entity is non-responsive. And from that moment, it's the project officer who would contact you and notify you that you need to take action and upload the requested documents. Here you see how the notification email looks like. So we are the messages that we send you, you receive a notification via email, but to reply to these messages, you need to log in the portal and reply there and take the necessary actions there. So at the end of my presentation, I would like to specify, we already mentioned that there is the scenario in which you might lose access to your PIC number for some reason. There are two possible options. In the first scenario, you have a declared PIC, so the PIC hasn't been validated yet. For example, you discovered in the participant register a PIC number for your organization and submitted a proposal, and then comes the moment where you need to validate your PIC, but you realize that you do not have access to this PIC number, and here for some reason, probably because the self-registrant, the person who registered this PIC number, it's not available anymore in the organization. They might have left for or some other reason. So in this case, the solution is that you create a new PIC number. So you go through the registration process and you notify us in the Central Validation Service. We are going to link your old declared PIC to the new PIC that you created and initiate the validation for newly created PIC. So like that, you have in the system a PIC number that you have access to that will be valid. The second scenario is if you discover in the system a PIC of your organization that is already valid, and you send a notification via the system to the person to the leader who is behind this PIC, but you do not receive any reaction. You don't know who the leader of this PIC is anymore. Maybe they have left, and there is no account administrators appointed. As previously mentioned. So in this case, to recover the access of this PIC, you need to follow a LEA recovery procedure, which is similar to LEA appointment. It's again with a step-by-step wizard, and at the end you have appointed LEA for an already valid PIC, and you can proceed with the next actions. But yes, that was briefly from me, and now I will pass the floor to my colleague Florin, who is going to introduce you to the financial capacity assessment aspects. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Elin, for your insightful presentation and for introducing us into the validation process. Here we are at the last step of the called financial capacity assessment. Is the last step in the validation process, and I started by listing our legal basis, which is composed by three main documents. The first one is the Financial Regulation 2024 with two relevant articles 199 and 201, which state that applicants must have stable and sufficient sources of funding to ensure that they can carry out the action throughout its entire life, of the action. The second document is the Rules on Legal Entity Validation, LEA Appointment and Financial Capacity Assessment, already mentioned by my colleague Elin, which lays down rules and list documents needed for validating the process, to validate your financial capacity assessments. So please read this document because it is also very important for you as much as the financial regulation. The third document is the call for proposals specific to your action, and here you can find important information of what happens in different scenarios. For example, if all the participants in the consortium are evaluated or only the coordinator, what happens if the coordinator gets a negative reply from us, as they get a negative financial capacity assessment, and so on. This document is also very important for you, so please have a look on it. Now, an obvious question is, when is the financial capacity assessment needed? It is not needed for all beneficiaries, but only for those who request more than 60,000 euros according to the financial regulation. Public bodies, including local, regional, and national authorities, are excluded from this process. We may also request the financial capacity assessments for other beneficiaries or affiliated entities in case we discover that there are strong business links between the participant and, for example, for the mother company or companies affiliated in the group. What are the documents we need to assess the financial capacity assessment? These are the main accounting reports, the balance sheets with the statement on financial position, the profit and loss accounts with the statement on financial performance, and also the explanatory notes or annexes if available. For us, these notes are very important because they provide us additional information which normally are not laid down on the documents, on the balance sheet and on the profit and loss account. So please, if you have these annexes, provide them to us because this will help the process. What happens in case the EU grant amount exceeds the amount of 750,000 euros? The financial regulation requests us to have an additional layer of assurance on the reliability of the accounts. This level is provided by financial audit reports. And please note that we discuss about the financial audit reports. We cannot accept a certificate on the financial accounts, statements. We cannot accept a performance audit or a compliance audit, but just a financial audit report which provides the opinion of the auditor, whether the accounts are free from material misstatement or not. In case your entity is not obliged to provide a financial audit report because it is too small, you will be kindly asked to provide us a self-declaration on the accounts, by which you tell us that the accounts are valid and that no audit was required by your national laws. The self-declaration on the accounts is a template. We will provide you this template. You don't have to start it from scratch. The financial regulation also requests us to perform the financial capacity assessment based on the reports provided for the last 2 most recent closed and approved financial years. You may provide us these documents in the official language. You don't have to translate it in English or in French. We will do that. Dated and signed. We are talking about the EU languages. If there are participants from Turkey or Albania or Serbia, we will kindly ask you to provide us free translation in English to facilitate the process. For newly established entities who have not yet reported their first financial statements, we will assess the business plan with the forecast on sales, expenses, investments, and so on. So we will assess future financial performance. Once completed, the financial capacity assessment is valid for 18 months from the closing dates. It means that in this period, if you apply for another grants in another action, we will not ask you again the set of the financial documents because we will keep the previous financial capacity assessments. Now, what happens in the participant portal? As Elin said, the communication is only done through the participant portal. Here you have dedicated tabs, and on the display you have the financial capacity tab, where you can provide us the necessary financial information by clicking on the big blue button below. And in the tab messages, you can access our correspondence, by which we can ask additional information, or you can ask us different other aspects or information concerning the financial capacity assessment process. For example, if you forgot to upload the audit reports, we might ask it from you. Or, for example, if you signed the declaration on the validity of the accounts only for 1 year, we will kindly ask you to resubmit the declaration signed for both years. So only this is the only mean to communicate with the participant. We will not send you emails or phone calls to ensure equality of treatment between participants. So having said that, I conclude my presentation, and we have put here a guidance documents list, which might be important for you. And here we are for questions. If there are any, we are happy to reply to them. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Florin. Elin, we have received some questions, so we can go quickly through them. How to proceed if the LEAR suddenly disappears and there is no ACAD? ACAD.
Probably this is account administrator, what they refer to. Well, at the end of my part, when I explained you these two scenarios, there is a dedicated LEAR recovery wizard, so you can start the LEAR recovery process. It's as if you appoint a new LEAR to your entity. So there is a solution in place in such scenarios.
Thank you very much. The next question. Unfortunately, there is more than one PIC in our organization registered, and we need to delete the wrong ones. How to proceed?
Yes, thank you for the question. It's actually happens often that that different people from the same organization register a new PIC. They do not search for a PIC that already exists. You can notify us with a message or using the help desk, and just inform us which are all the PIC numbers that you are aware of and which is the one you have access to. So we are going to merge all the PIC numbers into one that you have access to, and that would be your primary PIC number that you are going to use.
Perfect, thank you so much. Next question from Maria Sola. Can we validate PIC number before we got the first project? And at this moment we have status declared. Can we validate it until we wait for the results?
Maria, normally at this the proposal stage the validation is not triggered. We focus our resources to validate PIC numbers that are currently that are just about to sign their grant agreement preparations, their grant agreement. So the answer is no. At this moment, the PIC validation starts once the operational unit notifies us that this PIC needs to be validated.
Thank you. The next question. Why are some validation documents requested in the funding and tenders portal My Area tasks? The submitted documents and tasks are not visible anywhere in the portal afterwards.
So the task is open for you in order to, once you complete it, we to be notified that it's our turn now to take action. However, the submitted documents, the tasks are not visible anymore once they're completed, but the submitted documents that you submitted under the tasks, you can see them in the Documents tab. If you go to the Documents tab, you'll see which documents are uploaded already. You can see them there, they're stored.
Thank you. The next question from Anaita Kubars. Are PL Sign and LEAR the same people?
No, that these are not the same people. The LEAR, as we explained, this is the role that is responsible for the relation with the EU and managing the PIC number, any changes that might occur, and then the LEAR appoints L sign and F signs, and then the PL sign. This is a project role that it's appointed at a later stage.
This question is in the owner control. Sorry, they have switched. In the owner controls, it is also checked if there is any Bulan ownership from a not accepted country.
Florin, could you maybe assist on this one if you...
Apply partially, because we talk about another process called the ownership control assessment.
Yeah.
It does not refer to the financial capacity assessment or the legal validation process. It's true in certain conditions under specific actions, we assess the ownership control for companies, and basically we need to understand if the company is controlled by a EU country or not. If the company is not controlled by a EU country, it depends what is written in the call for proposals. If the company is accepted or not. but the accepted country usually is a EU country. It's not a non-EU country.
And the ownership, and if I may add, the ownership control assessment, it's performed for specific programs only if it's needed. It's not for within every single validation.
Thank you very much, both of you. We are running out of time, so the last question for today for you is the FCA a new process? Is it mandatory or on demand?
I can reply to this question. Actually, the process is called the validation process, which is split into two. One is the legal validation, and the second one is the financial validation. It is not on demand. It is mandatory only if the EU grant requested exceeds the amount of 60,000 euros. If it is less than 60,000 euros, you are exempt from these assessments.
Thank you very much, Florin. Thank you very much, Elin. We have to proceed now with the next presentation from Styliani TRYFONA. This is the technical description of the project, the description of action. Stella is a colleague from the Common Implementation Center. She's here with us at the studio.
Thanks, Manuel, for the introduction. As Manuel said, this part of the session is dedicated to the grant agreement preparation. We are going to focus on the description of the action, and we are going to have a detailed walkthrough of the IT tools. The presentation is separated into three parts. We are going to start by recapping some of the information already given about the grant agreement preparation phase. We're going to stress out the key points. Then we are going to drill down on the description of the action. What is it? How we are going to transform the proposal into the description of the action. And then for the better half of this presentation, we are going to see the IT tools that you are going to use as part of the grant agreement preparation phase. Starting with the introduction to the grant agreement preparation, as it has been already stated in the first presentation of the day, the maximum time to grant in most Horizon Europe projects is 8 months, with a few deviations from ERC grants, which can have more than 8 months, for example, some ERC starting or synergy grants, or the proof of concept might have 7 months of maximum, but the majority of them has 8 months maximum time to grant. This time to grant is separated into two phases. The first phase starts after the call deadline. It includes the evaluation of the proposals, and it ends with the information sent to the participants about the outcome of the proposal, and those who are successful are going to get an invitation to start the grant agreement preparation phase. This first phase can last maximum up to 5 months. Once you receive the invitation to the GAP, then the process begins officially, and you are expected to start working in collaboration with the project officer. In order to encode, at the beginning, you have to encode the grant agreement data into the systems in order for the grant agreement contract to be prepared, and then the end of the process will be the grant signature. Indicatively, we calculate around 6 months for this first part of the grant agreement preparation phase, where you collaborate and add information into the system, because after that, we have several administrative tasks that need to be handled on the side of the EU services. You see some of them on the screen, for example, the award decision, the budgetary commitment, and in some cases for the Horizon Europe program, some projects need to be approved by the program committee, which is composed of member state representatives. This is what we call the comitology, and you can see that at the bottom of the screen. This applies for grants that are more than 2.5 million euros, with exception of ERC. If you, for actions under civil security for society, or if you deal in your proposal with human embryos or human embryonic stem cells, and there are also some other criteria. At the end of these administrative tasks that we need to do to complete the process, then we have the grant signature. First, it will be the consortium, in most cases, that signs the grant signature, the coordinator on behalf of the consortium, and then it will be the EU service. And once we have the signature of the grant, then we can release the pre-financing to give you the necessary cash flow to start the project. And the beneficiaries will be called to accede to the grant agreement by signing the accession forms within 30 days of the grant signature. We said, we just said that indicatively we have calculation and planning for 6 weeks for the grant agreement data to be encoded into the data system, to be agreed with the project officer, so we can follow up with the other administrative tasks. So the breakdown, it was already presented by Petros, but just one small recap. You receive the invitation letter and the evaluation summary report. We estimate around 3 weeks for you where you will be given access to the systems and you will be able to start encoding your information there. Then the coordinator will have to submit the grant agreement data on behalf of the consortium. The PO will have around 1 week to review. If everything goes well, then that's the end of the process. On your side, we need to do the administrative tasks that we explained before. It might be that if there are some remaining issues, that the task come back to you to finalize the information there. And when we say that the grant agreement data that needs to be filled in, and we say that both the consortium and the project officer will have to work together in order to add information about the scientific and technical part of the proposal, budgetary information, any kind of administrative legal information to set up the reporting periods, any kind of project reviews and information like that into the system. All of comprise the grant agreement data, which then when gathered by the IT system at the end of this process, they are going to be transformed into the grant agreement contract that will be signed at the end of the phase. And basically, if we see the layout of the grant agreement contract, we will see that we have the core part, the main part, which is comprised of the data sheet, which is a summary of key information of your project, like a fact sheet. What kind of call it is, what kind of topic, the budget, if you have pre-financing, if you have a mandatory consortium agreement. So it's going to be a list of valuable information for the project. And then we also have the core grant agreement, which basically we mean the articles of the contract. Then attached to this main core of the grant agreement will be the annexes. Most notably, we have the first annex, which is the description of the action, and we are going to see in detail in the following slides. We have Annex 2, which will be the estimated budget that will be appended. And then depending on the programs, we have other annexes and specifically for Horizon Europe. In Annex 5, for example, we have some specific rules that relate to the IPR transfers, to dissemination obligations, ethics, security, and other specific rules for Horizon Europe. Focusing now on the description of the action. The description of the action, as we said before, is the Annex 1 of the grant agreement, and basically it is all the details about what the project is and how the project will be carried out. Actions, risks, participants, milestones, deliverables, and so on and so forth. It is based on the submitted version of your proposal, the one that you sent for evaluation. And basically it is comprised of two parts. We have the first part, which is the structure information. This is information that we ask you to add to the IT screens. You will see that some of it is already pre-filled based on proposal information, but it might be that some you need to encode yourselves. And we need this structured part because it enables us and you to better manage and monitor the project, and in the future, in the project lifecycle, if there are any changes or amendments, it's going to facilitate the monitoring of the project. Part B is the narrative part, and it's based on the Part B of your proposal. So basically, we ask you to take the Part B of your evaluated proposal, to do a few changes that we are going to see afterwards, and then to upload it as PDF into the system. But this is a free text description of the project. The instructions that we are going to see in the next couple of slides, they already exist in detail, and even more details about some specific grants like ERC grants or EIC grants. They exist inside the description of the action template, and you are going to be able to find it from the portal once you get access into the system. I'm going to show you where you can download it. Starting with Part A, the Part A, as we said, is going to be the structured information of the proposal, of the description of the action that we put into the IT screens. And once the IT system gathers this information and exports automatically the grant agreement contract, the Part A of the description of the action will be composed of the cover page and the table of contents. For this, you don't have to do anything. It's going to be automatically added by the IT system. It has the project summary, which is based on the proposal abstract, the list of participants, the work packages and their description, the staff effort, the deliverables, the milestone, and the critical risks. As you see, each of these lists and information is mapped to a table of your proposal in Part B, because it's basically this information that goes from the proposal into the Part A of the description of the action. In some cases, we pre-fill it, as we're going to see. In some other cases, we ask you to add them manually. Two things to point out on this slide. Be careful with the proposal of the abstract, because it's going to be published to Cordis, so it's public information. So avoid putting any kind of confidential, sensitive information or commercial secrets, anything that shouldn't be public. And the second thing to point out is that if you need to do any kind of changes, you need to first discuss and agree with compared to the submitted version of your proposal. It is, you should discuss them and agree them with your project officer in advance. And of course, we cannot accept any kind of changes that will substantially change the nature of the project. And if they have been known in advance, they could have ended up in a different evaluation. The Part B, as we said, of the description of the action is the narrative part, the free text. So you are going to take the Part B of your proposal, the one that you used again as for evaluation, the submitted version that you used for evaluation. You are going to take the Part B, and you are going to do the following changes. You need to remove and delete any kind of headers or cover pages if you had any. Replace the footer with the suggested one that you see here. And then we need to remove a series of tables that as we said, they're going to be moved to the IT screens, and they're going to be included into the Part A of the description of the action. These tables are the list of participants, the work packages. You see them all here with the mapping of the proposal, how you find them in the proposal Part B, the deliverables, the milestones, and the summary of staff effort. You have them all there, with the exception of some tables that we ask you to keep in the narrative part of the description of the action, which are basically the tables that are related to costs, the subcontracting costs, purchase costs, other type of cost categories, and the in-kind contributions. These are not added to the Part A, so you keep them into the Part B. Then we ask you to add an extra section and copy-paste the ethics self-assessment that is currently located in the proposal Part A, to copy-paste it into this section, the new section in the description of the action Part B. And lastly, to add two tables of contents two tables. One is a table of contents to add it or update it if it already exists. And the other one is the history of changes that you did to the Part B compared to the submitted version of your proposal. And we are interested here to see significant changes, not changes like some sort of grammatical or formatting changes or grammatical errors or some spelling mistakes that they were fixed, but something more substantial to the change of the proposal. And then, of course, to repeat again that any kind of changes that you are going to do and they're going to be more important than spelling mistakes or grammar mistakes, you need to discuss with your project officer in advance. We cannot allow very, very important changes that will fundamentally alter the nature of the project. Some final points to bring to your attention concerning the description of the action and how it can be affected by some processes. All projects that are invited to GAP, they are going to undergo an ethics review and security scrutiny assessment. These processes already begin from the evaluation phase, but if there are any complex issues or any kind of, if there is need of extra requirements, it can be that they take up some time from the grant agreement preparation phase to be concluded. If there are any kind of requirements, these will become contractual obligations in the sense that they're going to be added into the grant agreement, and as such they are binding. We have two types of requirements that may come up from ethics review or a security scrutiny. We have the requirements that need to be met before the signature of the grant, and in most cases these are some changes to the description of the action or maybe to the ethics self-assessment or maybe changing the dissemination level of some deliverables. And we have another type of requirements that need to be met after the signature of the grant. These requirements will be automatically added to a new work package by the IT system, and all the deliverables will be attached to the work package. We're going to see later some related screens. But as we said, this process might take some time because there are experts involved, and if there are complex issues identified and need change, then there are changes that need to be made. It can be that you get notified about the requirements later in the grant agreement preparation phase. And finally, one point to be made, because we ask you to do some changes in order to transform your proposal into a description of the action. We ask you to remove tables. We ask you to take information from the proposal Part B and put it into the description of the action Part A. You should try to avoid having duplicate information. So something that you took from Part B, the list of participants, for example, and put it into Part A, you should remove it from Part B. Make sure that this information is removed from there. Because if in the project, during the project life cycle, let's say you need to change the participants, Part A will be updated, but Part B might not be updated, might be forgotten to update information there. And thus we were going to have a legal contract signed that will have contradictory information, and that can have some complications in the future. The final part that we are going to see, and it's going to be the most detailed, it's going to be about the IT tools that you are going to use as part of the grant agreement preparation phase. Petros already saw this area and how you are going to be able to access your projects. This is the funding and tenders portal. You are going to sign in, and once you sign in under grants, you are going to find My Projects. And then once you are invited to GAP, to grant agreement preparation, the project is going to appear in the list, and then clicking on actions, you are going to see Manage Project. before we see how, when you click Manage Project, where you are going to be landed, one extra point of to bring to your attention is that at the top here you are going to see some icons with some notifications. These are some the icon here, the triangular icon has some F&T announcements from time to time with important business or IT information. You should take into consideration to check them, because it might be, for example, something related to the association of countries, some important information that might affect your project, or it can be even information about IT system downtime for reasons of maintenance that might affect you. Once you click Manage Project, Petros explained this screen very briefly. Just to recap, this is the landing page, the Grant Management Services system. On the left side, you're going to have information about your project and some useful functionalities like access to the document library. The communication center here is for informal communication with your project officer. And you're going to have one active process here, which is the proposal management and grant preparation. The metro line shows all the steps and which of them have already completed and which are yet to come. In the active process that you're going to see, you have the first task, which is the grant agreement data preparation. When you click this link here, you are going to be redirected to the IT tools, to the screens, where you're going to add the information for part A and also to upload part B. In the next slides we're going to see the screens in detail. Once everything is done and all the consortium has completed their information there and you are okay with the data that you have filled in, the coordinator needs to submit to EU the grant agreement data for review. Another task that you see below the grant agreement data preparation is another task that opens in parallel, and it is the declaration of honor that the participants need to sign. The benefit that applies to beneficiaries and affiliated entities. The beneficiaries, they're going to see the link here. You are going to be able to click it, read the content of the description of the action, and then sign it electronically. Your PL sign, your project legal signatory, will sign for the participant the declaration of honor. If you have affiliated entities, if the beneficiary has affiliated entities, the affiliated entities do not have access to the IT system. So they are not going to be able, for technical and security reasons, they're not going to be able to see here these screens. So the beneficiary that is responsible for them needs to assist them into completing their task. The beneficiary will see a task here with a declaration of honor for each of the affiliated entities that are attached to the beneficiary. You are going to download it, send it to the affiliated entity, which will sign, and the scanned copy needs to be uploaded by the beneficiary into this process, clicking the button here. The grant agreement data preparation that we discussed and the declaration of honor are two tasks that can happen in parallel. There is no kind of ordering if you need to finish one first of the other. Just be careful not to forget signing the declaration of honor, because we have cases that it can delay the projects if forgotten. Once you click in the previous screen the grant agreement data here at the top, you will be landed to the IT tool screens where you are going to start encoding the grant agreement data. The first landing screen is the project summary. Here it's a read-only screen. You don't have to do anything, just check this information to see if everything seems okay to you. You're going to see information about the responsible unit, the information about the call you participated, the budget information, the officers who are going to assist you into managing the grant, and some deadlines, some estimated deadlines about your project. For example, when is the date foreseen for the signature of the grant? Here you see next to the project summary, we have all the screens. Each tab is a screen with information that might need to be filled in or reviewed. The legend, each of them have an icon. Petros already explained the legends, but just a small recap. If you have a green check mark, then the information of on the screen is okay. It's fine, and we are not missing any important information there. If you have this red sign with the cross, then that means that the information there is missing, and the missing information is blocking at this point, so we won't be able to continue with the process if this information is not added. Then those who have the eye icon are information-only screens, and those who have this orange triangle with the exclamation mark, these are warning signs. It means that information is missing, but it's not blocking at this point, but it might be blocking in the future steps. Next to the project summary, we have the beneficiaries screen. This is the beneficiaries that will, and the affiliated entities that participate into the grant. This information comes already pre-filled by the proposal, so you won't have to add them manually. But if you want, you can make changes by changing the coordinator or adding a new beneficiary or removing one. But be careful, changes in the consortium are considered serious changes, and you need to justify them and discuss and agree with your project officer about the change into the consortium of the grant. Each line is going to be a participant, and when you click on the line, you are going to be redirected to a series of screens with information about the said participant. So the first page is the partner summary. This information, most of it is read-only in this screen. It is information about the entity that comes from the participant register. So if anything, it is your PIC, legal names, your addresses, and if anything needs to be changed here, you need to change it to the participant register, and the information will come to this system. This information here will be read-only. The only thing that we ask you to add is the department or departments, if there are many, that they're going to work in the implementation of the action on your side. And you can see other information apart from the information that you have about your legal entity. For example, you can see here if you have a gender equality plan. As Petros said, the gender equality plan is declared in the portal organization data, but if you have it or don't have it, you're going to see information also here. Next to the partner summary, you are going to see your financial information, your budget for the action. This comes already pre-filled by using the proposal data, but it can be edited. But again, if you change something, you need to discuss and agree with your project officer, because this can also needs to be in their attention, and they need to agree with the changes that need to be made. Next to that, we have the project representatives. This is also information that comes pre-filled by the funding and tenders portal, and it's based on the roles you set up. As Petros explained in the first presentation, you have to set up some roles. Some of them need to be validated, for example, the LEAR, but you have also the project legal signatory, which will appear here, and also the contact people. All of these roles and people fulfilling these roles will come as information from the funding and tenders portal once they are added there. If the beneficiary has affiliated entities attached to it, you are going to see the information about the affiliated entities in this screen next to the in the screen. The information is pre-filled by the proposal data, but of course you should check if everything is okay. You can add a new affiliated entity or remove one, but it is the same as with changes in the main roles of the consortium, the coordinator and the beneficiary. These kind of changes need to be discussed and agreed with your project officer. They are serious changes, any changes that happen to consortium members. Also, when you click on the affiliated entity, you are going to be redirected into a couple of screens and you're going to see information about these affiliated entities. Their partner summary, which is the same as the beneficiaries. It is information about the legal entity that we get from the participant register, and it's going to be read-only here. And financial information, so the budget for this affiliated entity, because the affiliated entities can claim costs as part of a project, and they also come pre-filled, but you can edit with the same rules that we had for the beneficiaries, that you need to discuss it with your project officer. Only for the coordinators of a consortium, you are going to have to select a bank account. Your organization might have many bank accounts already registered and validated in the participant register. You need to select one of them if you have many, and if you do not see the bank account that you want, this bank account will be used for the payments and it will be mentioned in the grant agreement, the contract that will be signed. If you want to change and if you want another bank account that's not added, you can see here there is a link with instructions on how you can register another bank account through the participant register. Now, moving out of the beneficiaries screens, specific screens, and going back into the main landing page that we had, and we saw already the project summary and the beneficiaries. Let's see another screen with information about the associated partners. The associated partners are entities that participate into the grant. They can have a significant role, like being work package leaders, but they do not sign the grant and they cannot declare costs. Also, they do not, similarly to the affiliated entities, they do not have access, for technical security reasons, they do not have access into the IT tools. So if there are any tasks that they need to do, like if they are work package leader and lead the beneficiaries in a deliverable, it might be the consortium that needs to add, to upload the information on their behalf. The associated partners will be pre-filled here based on the proposal data, but you can add a new associated partner if needed or remove an existing one with the agreement of your project officer. The associated partners, if you click on it, you are going to see on the line, you're going to go and see information about the associated partner that we get from the participant register. Again, their address, whatever information they have filled in, we are going to display here. One thing to take into consideration is that the associated partners need to be registered, so that means they have a PIC, but they do not need to be validated, contrary to beneficiaries and affiliated entities that they will need to be validated by the Central Validation Service. The associated partners, they just need to be registered, no need to validate them. The information about the associated partners will be Article 9.1 of the grant agreement, and what we ask you here in this screen is to select if the associated partner is associated with the whole of the consortium or with a particular beneficiary. Next to that, we have the researcher screen. This is mandatory information in Horizon Europe. We have an obligation to see the effect, to monitor the effect of the program on human capital and particularly on researchers. So we ask you to add information about the researchers that they're going to work in the project. The researchers that have been already added in the proposal, in the application form, will be automatically pre-filled here. But if you want to add a researcher, you can click the button and then you have the pop-up. You have two options here. You can either fill in the information manually, or you can here see the button import, the link import profile. You can add the email of the researcher, and if they have any public information on my person profile section of the FNT portal, so if they have added their profile in the funding and tenders portal and it has public information, we can retrieve them and automatically pre-fill it here. For the entities that we said, for the participants that we said that don't have access to the IT tools, like the affiliated entities and the associated partners, it will be the consortium members that need to add this information on their behalf into the system. One word of caution here is that that if you need to remove researchers that have been declared in the proposal, you need to have the agreement of the EU services of your project officer, and that is because in some cases it can be that the existence of a researcher and well-renowned researcher during the proposal could have ended up into the proposal being favorably evaluated, and then if the researcher is removed in gap, it might raise some concerns about the quality of the project and whether it has fundamentally changed the nature of the project that you are undertaking. Of course, we are aware that you might not know in advance all the researchers that are going to participate in your project, and you might recruit researchers throughout the project life cycle. So this screen will remain available also in continuous reporting. So if you have any other researchers who are going to join into your project, you can still go on and add more information as it comes. Here we have the screen for the work packages. This information already exists in the Part B of your proposal. It won't be automatically pre-filled for you in the IT screens. You need to add it manually. You have here the Add Work Packages button, and you can add this information, and you can drag and drop to change the ordering of the work packages. The same applies with deliverables. They are not going to be automatically listed, so you need to copy-paste the information from the proposal Part B. Be careful about the dissemination level that you have here. Be careful that if it's indeed public, or if you have any deliverables where the information needs to be sensitive or EU classified. We go on with the next two screens. The same applies here, milestones, and then we're going to see the critical risks. The information exists in the proposal, but it's not going to be automatically pre-filled. You have to add them manually by clicking the button here, Add Milestone, and here Add Critical Risks. And next, to conclude basically with the Part A, before we see a bit of information about Part B, two screens that are related with the ethics review and the security scrutiny processes that we already mentioned in advance. Now, as long as the process of the ethics review and the security scrutiny is ongoing, you are going to see here the warning sign, which means that the process is not completed. Once the process is completed, we have two cases. If you get an ethics clearance, then this will become a green check mark. It means that your project is okay, and you don't need to do anything, any changes in the project. If then the other thing is that you might have some requirements to fulfill. If the requirements need to be met before the grant signature, so it might be some changes again to the self-assessment in the description of the action, it can be changing the dissemination level of some deliverables. This will remain as a warning until you do the changes, and then it will change into a green check mark. If you have any requirements that need to be met after the grant signature, then the IT tool will automatically add the requirements that need to be met after the grant signature. So it might be some changes in the description of the action, it can be changing the dissemination level of some deliverables. This will remain as a warning until you do the changes, and then it will change into a green check mark. If you have any requirements that need to be met after the grant signature, then the IT tool will automatically add a new work package in the list of work packages with all the necessary deliverables for you, and the work package leader will be the coordinator. It can be that as the process is ongoing, you get a request for some additional information as part of the assessment process, and you are going to get notified if there are any kind of additional information requests. You're going to receive a notification. You are going to see it also in the process below the grant agreement preparation. The same applies for the security scrutiny, exactly the same thing with the recommendations that might come. And then we go on with the part B. So here you see that you have a button called Documents. When you click the Documents, you are going to see all the documents that are part of the grant agreement contract that will be signed at the end of the process. You see here that we have a description of the action part B. Next to it is an icon with the template. You are going to download the template and you are going to see in detail all the instructions that we presented a few slides before about the things that you need to change in the proposal part B to make it compliant with the description of the action. So all the things that you need to remove, add. Once you are done, it's not visible here, but on the same line, you're going to see an upload button. You need to convert it into a PDF and upload the PDF here. If you have already uploaded part B and you need to change it, you have to delete the original one and re-upload the new part B, the revised part B. That's it for the presentation of the description of the action and the IT tools. We have as a final slide here a few either recorded webinars that have taken place in the past and we think that might help you, or also you can find here the event page with other events that we organize as part of Horizon Europe. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stella. We have now time for some questions, and we have with you here, we have also Petros BELSIS, who presented before, and he will help with the questions too. So first question, is the PL sign assigned exclusively to the coordinator, or who else could do this role?
No, each participant has a PL sign. So basically, each of the participants have, so beneficiary is the coordinator, you have a leader. The leader at the beginning, when they set up the organization data, they're going to set up legal signatories for the whole of the organization. And then the participant contact of your organization needs to select one or more legal signatories to be the project, to be assigned to the project. And they will be the project legal signatory. And each participant has one. So the coordinator and the beneficiary has a PL sign.
Thank you very much. The next question from Jan Gabler. If you add an ethics work package, how can we assign the necessary resources and PM's budget to it to be able to fulfill the work?
I can take that. Actually, if you have been added another work package for ethics, then you will have either to reshuffle resources from what are the existing, let's say, distribution between the work packages, or you can remove a part from the coordinating tasks. Actually, if you had already, you were already, let's say, aware that you are subject to this ethics review and you are dealing with ethics issues in your research, you can anticipate that you will have probably an additional work package. But the effort can be either reshuffled or you can remove a part from the coordinating tasks.
Thank you very much, Petros. The next question. In the ethics self-assessment, there are multiple choice and open text sections. Should we only include open text sections or also screenshots for the multiple choice?
The multi-choice questions, they are copied immediately from the proposal. So you can just copy-paste the text from your proposal to the narrative sections of, the relative section.
Thank you. The next question. The part 8 of the description of action lists the work packages indicates time for all work package 36 months. The part B timetable indicates that work package 2.5 need to finish 3 months earlier. Which part is correct?
So if I understand correctly, you have the information of the list of work packages in both Part A and Part B, and it's a duplicate information. This is what we said, that this is why we need to avoid that, because right now they have contradictory information. I'm not so sure if this is in a gap. Then you need to fix that. You need to remove it from Part B. Remove the list of work packages table from Part B and leave the one in Part A. And if there is some change to be made to the Part A, for example, to make it 3 months earlier, when you add the work packages in the screens, you need to adjust the time in the IT screens directly, and contact, of course, your project officer to inform them of this change. If this is a signed grant, I'm not really sure. That's a legal question.
Thank you very much, Stella. Next question. Does each project within one single institution must have its own bank account?
Does each
For each project, you don't need to have a separate bank account for each project. It's up to you. You may have multiple bank accounts and assign one. Of course, as we already mentioned, the payments are done to the coordinator. Now, if you are not a coordinator, then you have to deal with the coordinator in which bank account they will transfer you. If you are a coordinator, I think Stella explained during the presentation, if I am not wrong, the question was placed before, but the answer, directly, also it's no, you don't need a separate bank account, it's up to you.
One question about deadlines now. Our project officer took 1.5 months to make the first review and provided 15 pages of comments with 1 week deadline. Any comment on that?
With the information that you provide to us, we would not like to make comment. We do not know the case. It could be subject to ethics or something else, or we cannot. I mean, just if you have something specific to comment, please, you can contact the RES and submit the information to provide very detailed information. Based on what you provide us, we cannot either positively or negatively comment.
Thank you, Petros. The next question. Will there be a simple guide to prepare grants in general for complete beginners?
Generally, you will find a lot of information about Horizon Europe program and detailed IT walkthrough with for example, the print screens of the IT screens that we displayed today, and also explanations and documents in the funding and tenders portal. There's also an online manual with some steps that you can do at the grant agreement preparation phase. It explains to you step by step what are the most important stages. You are going to find that, and also templates and all other documents related to the program. In the funding and tenders portal, when you enter the landing page, you see guidance and documents at the menu, and then underneath you have reference documents, you have frequently asked questions, you have the help desk where you're going to access you need it for the research inquiry service, and in the reference documents, and you're going to find all the annotated grant agreement, any kind of templates. So please look at under guidance and documents in the funding and tenders portal and the subsections, and I think you're going to find a lot of data and a lot of information there.
Thank you very much, Stella. The last question for today. In the projects list webpage, I see one dashboard message, but I cannot find a message in the formal notifications nor in the managed project console. Any insights on that?
Normally in the communications center, you can find all the messages. If not, if you think maybe it is something else, you can always contact the IT help desk and
Yes.
provide you.
Yeah.
They can direct you.
Thank you very much, both of you, Stella and Petros. Thank you for the questions and the presentations. So we have to go now to the next and last presentation for today is legal and financial aspects avoiding common errors. And here we have two lawyers from the Common Implementation Center, Sara CAPRUZZI, that will start the presentation, and will continue with Miguel Escandón, also from the Common Implementation Center. Sara, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So my name is Sara CAPRUZZI. I work in the legal unit of DG Research and Innovation. And together with my colleague Miguel, today we're going to present you some legal rules and financial rules that you need to take into account when preparing your grant agreement, before signing your grant agreement. So I will now share my presentation so we can start. Can you all see the presentation? Yes, okay. So today I will guide you through the Horizon Europe Model Grant Agreement that you will sign at the end of the grant agreement preparation. The objective of this presentation is to explain specific elements and key features of the grant agreement that you have to pay attention to. So I will first go through the model grant agreement to show how it looks, how it is structured, and what you can find there. Then we will focus on the types of participants that can participate to the project together with the beneficiaries. And we will also focus on the different types of costs with dedicated slides to the personal cost, which are normally your main cost category. So let's start with the model grant agreement. These slides gives you an overview of how it looks and its parts. There is a core part with different articles that are grouped in 6 chapters. At the beginning of the core part, there is the data sheet, where you can find a summary of the main data of your grant agreement. So as you can see in the slide, you can find there general data such as the start and end date of your project. You can find there the list of participants, the grant amount, the reporting and payment schedule. You find there also the consequences on non-compliance, the information on the applicable law and dispute settlement forum, and specific rules and under Annex 5 that applies. So basically, this datasheet provides an overview, a summary of the key information of your grant agreement. In the grant agreement, you don't only have a core part. There are also 5 annexes attached to your grant agreement that come from proposal stage. So you have Annex 1, which is the description of action. That includes the technical details of the project that you're going to implement. You have Annex 2. Annex 2 is the estimated budget, your estimated budget for your project, where you have an estimation of your costs under the different budget categories, such as personnel cost, subcontracting cost, and other categories. And there you also have the maximum grant amount reflected there. Annex 3 is the accession forms for the beneficiaries. So normally the grant agreement is signed by the coordinator and by us, by the commission or the executive agency as your granting authority. And then after the signature of the grant by the coordinator and the granting authorities, beneficiaries have to sign the accession form to accede to the grant agreement. Annex 4 is the model for the financial statement. This is relevant for the time when you will have to declare your cost at the end of the reporting period. It is a model that is filled in online. You will have to indicate the cost that you have incurred in the reporting period, and you have to claim them under the relevant cost category. Annex 5 is where you will find specific rules for Horizon Europe or for specific actions of Horizon Europe. So the structure of the grant agreement is corporate, and this means that the corporate model grant agreement is not only used for Horizon Europe, but also for other funding programs, such as the LIFE programs, the Digital Europe programs, or other programs. So the specific rules that apply specifically to Horizon Europe, you can find them in Annex 5. As you can see in the slides, there are rules about ethics, about security, values, intellectual property rights, communication, dissemination, open science, and visibility. And in Annex 5, you will also find specific rules depending on the type of actions that you're working on. So you can have the research and innovation actions, ERC actions, Marie Curie actions, and you can see other examples of actions. So this is how your grant agreement looks and where you can find the main obligation of your grant agreement. Now we continue with the types of participants that can participate to your action. These slides shows a table that summarizes the different types of participants that can participate in an action. I will explain them in more details in a bit in the next slides. But in these slides, you have a summary that shows the difference between them. For your information, you can find this table in the annotated model grant agreement, which is a document where you have under each provisions a set of explanations, a set of examples that help you understand the meaning of the obligations that you have and how to comply with them. So as I was saying, this table gives an overview of the participant that can participate in a project together with the beneficiaries. There are other third parties. You have affiliated entities, associated partners, third parties contributing to the projects, subcontractors, and if allowed in the call conditions, you may also have third parties receiving financial support. So in this table, you can see who is doing what are the conditions for participating, if they need to be identified in Annex 1. And as you can see, the grant agreement includes a specific article for each of these third parties. Going into a bit more details, we can start with beneficiaries and coordinators, because they are, let's say, they are the main actors of the project, as they are the one signing or signatories of the grant agreement. As I said, beneficiaries accede to the grant agreement via the accession form, by signing the accession form. They are together fully responsible for the technical implementation of the action. They have individual responsibility when it comes to financial aspects. As beneficiary, you must remain eligible to participate and to receive funding for the whole project duration. In terms of general obligations, you must submit to the coordinator in good time the financial statements, the technical reports, the deliverables. You must inform the granting authority of any events likely to affect or delay the action implementation. And you must submit via the portal any data and information related to your participation in the action or the participation of your affiliated entities, if you have any. As coordinator, you have additional responsibilities. You directly sign the grant agreement, and you are the main contact point, the central contact point for the granting authority, and you represent the consortium towards the granting authority. In terms of obligations, you have specific obligations that you can see in the slides. So you have to monitor that the action is implemented properly. You will act as intermediary for all communications. So you will request and review any documents before passing them to the granting authority. You will submit the deliverables and reports to the granting authority. And you will have eventually to inform the granting authority about the payments made to the other beneficiaries if required. When you receive the payments, you must distribute the payments to the other beneficiaries without unjustified delay. So this is important because it is you as coordinator that will receive the payments from the granting authorities, while the other beneficiaries will receive their share from the coordinator. You should bear in mind that this task cannot be delegated or subcontracted to any other beneficiary or third party, including affiliated entities. This is a general rule. There are very few exceptions to this rule that are clearly indicated in the grant agreement. For instance, to entities with authorization to administer. However, as I said, as a general rule, these coordination tasks cannot be delegated to or outsourced, and are the responsibility of the coordinator. Going now into the third parties that can participate to the project. Beneficiaries may involve the affiliated entities. Here, if you were familiar with the previous framework program with Horizon 2020, affiliated entities correspond to the link third parties in Horizon 2020. The affiliated entities work on the action, they implement action tasks, and they can declare their own cost for implementing the action tasks. They must have a legal or capital link with the beneficiary, which is neither limited to the action nor established for the sole purpose of its implementation. You can see in the slide some examples. So this link could be a permanent legal structure, a contractual cooperation not limited to the action, or a capital link. Affiliated entities must be identified in Article 8. Their task must be mentioned in Annex 1, and their budget must be included in Annex 2. They have the same conditions for participation and funding as beneficiaries. So in practice, this means that they are treated like beneficiary, and they must have their own financial statement. They must provide the certificate for financial statement if it is needed. They contribute to the technical report, to submit deliverables, and so on. However, they do not sign the grant agreement, and the beneficiary are responsible towards the granting authority for the work carried out by their affiliated entities. Going to other participants that you can have in your projects. You can have also associated partners. Also here, if you were familiar with Horizon 2020, in Horizon 2020, they had the status of international partner. They may participate in a project as either linked to one beneficiary or to the whole consortium. They must be identified under Article 9.1 of the grant agreement, and their task must be included in Annex 1. Since they do not sign the grant agreement, beneficiaries are responsible for the proper implementation of the task implemented by the associated partners. The main characteristic of the associated partners is that they work on the action, but they cannot declare cost. They cannot receive EU funding, so they participate at their own cost. This means that they do not have to comply with the eligibility conditions for funding. They are not concerned by the financial rules of the grant agreement, but there are still obligations that they have to comply with that you can see on the slides, such as they have to comply with the provision on the proper implementation, on conflict of interest, confidentiality and security, ethics, visibility, and so on. And also, beneficiaries must ensure that their associated partners respect the call condition and the specific rules on Annex 5. Going on to other third parties that may participate to the actions, you may also have subcontractors. Subcontractors can implement action tasks if it is necessary for the implementation of the action. The estimated tasks and cost of the subcontractors must be identified in Annex 1 and Annex 2. However, the name of the subcontractor does not need to be included in Annex 1. So if you don't have already selected your subcontractor, but you know already at the time of the grant agreement preparation that you will have to subcontract some action tasks, you need to identify in the grant agreement the tasks and the budget foreseen for the subcontracting. If for some reason you realize that you need to subcontract some tasks during the action implementation, and this was not foreseen at the time of the signature of the grant agreement, you may rely in what we call the simplified approval procedure. This means that at the time of reporting, you will have to include in the periodic report the use of the unforeseen subcontracting together with an explanation, with a justification for the subcontracting. You have to bear in mind that the subcontracting can be accepted only if it is justified and if the use of the subcontracting does not entail changes to the agreement, which would call into question the decision awarding the grant or breach the principle of equal treatments of applicants. So this means that all beneficiaries bears the risk of rejection of cost. So in practice, it is always suggested, or it is always better to contact your project officer to inform him or her that you need to subcontract some action tasks that, and this was not foreseen in Annex 1. And so with a case-by-case assessment to see whether it is it is worthwhile to go via formal amendment to the grant agreement, or if you can use the simplified approval procedure. As for all third parties that they bring to the actions, beneficiaries are responsible for the proper implementation of the subcontracted tasks and of the work done by the subcontractor. Please note that this is very important. Subcontracting between beneficiaries is not allowed. This is because each beneficiary must perform their action tasks described in Annex 1 and declare their own cost. Also, subcontracting to affiliates, and by affiliates here, I do not refer to affiliated entities that I explained before, but to entities, for instance, with a capital link to the beneficiary. This is generally not allowed either. It can be exceptionally justified, for instance, if you have a framework agreement in place, but normally this is not allowed. Finally, other third parties that can participate to a project that are important to mention are third parties providing in-kind contribution. These third parties, they do not implement action tasks differently than previous third parties, but they may give in-kind contributions to the actions in the forms of personnel, equipment, or other goods, works, or services, if necessary for the implementation of the action. So here it is necessary to make a distinction between in-kind contribution provided against payment and free of charge. In-kind contribution against payment refers to the situation where there is a payment, a financial transaction between the beneficiary and the third party for the in-kind contribution provided. In-kind contribution free of charge, on the other hand, refers to the case where a third party makes available some of its resources to a beneficiary for free, meaning without any payment. So under the previous framework program, under Horizon 2020, there were specific provisions for both this type of in-kind contribution. Under Horizon Europe, both types of in-kind contribution are still eligible. However, in Horizon Europe, when we talk about in-kind contribution free of charge, we refer when we talk about in-kind contribution, we refer only to in-kind contribution free of charge. So this means in practice that, as you can see in the slide, for in-kind contribution against payment, there is not a specific article in the grant agreement, but the cost for the in-kind contribution against payment can still be declared under the appropriate cost category, for instance, as a personal cost for seconded person under Article 6.2.A.3, as cost for renting equipment, or as purchase costs. In-kind contribution free of charge, for in-kind contributions free of charge, there are specific provisions in the grant agreement. The third party will not declare the cost, but the cost of the in-kind contribution must be declared by the beneficiary, which use them under the relevant cost category, as if they were incurred by the beneficiary itself. So, for instance, if an employee of a third party is provided to a beneficiary via secondment free of charge, the beneficiary may declare the personal cost under the categories of its own employees, so as if it was the beneficiary's own staff. So this is all from my side. I will stop here, and I will now give the floor to my colleague Miguel, who will present the second part of the presentation. Will explain the types of costs that you can have in your grant agreement. So thank you for your attention, and Miguel, you now have the floor. Thank you.
Okay, Miguel, it seems you are muted, so you have to start from the beginning.
Okay, sorry. Yes. And sorry, I was saying that my name is Miguel Escandón and I'm colleague of Sara. So thank you, Sara, for providing the first presentation on these legal and financial aspects. For this second part, I will focus in type of cost, and I will give key information about the different type of cost, what costs are eligible, how to declare them, and under which cost category. In this first slide, you can see the different type of cost or cost category that you can see as well in Annex 2, estimated budget, but also in the financial statement when you have to fill in online your cost declaration. So, for example, we have personnel cost, that is all this type of costs, and there are categories as well, depending if are employees, natural person under direct contract, seconded persons, or SME owners or natural person beneficiaries. We have as well subcontracting cost that my colleague Sara was explaining before from other aspect. Now we will focus more from the cost perspective. And these costs are the one that the beneficiary decide to rely on other entities to perform part of the work allocated to you in the description of the action in Annex 1 of the grant agreement. We also have a purchases cost that is split mainly in three subcategories. So it's travel cost, all these trips necessary for the implementation of the actions, equipment used for the project, and in another slides I will explain how to declare this cost and different particularities. And the other type of purchasing cost, or the third one, is other goods, work, and services. There is as well a special category, is other cost category that we have, for instance, financial support for third party, and this is relevant for your specific actions. So then you have to check in your grant agreement if this type of cost is foreseen, the financial support for third parties. But also other category could be internal invoicing. So it's all those costs charged internally from one department to another inside the beneficiary. So you may have internal rate, internal tariff with an internal methodology which establishes how to claim certain costs between the different departments. And these costs could be eligible as well if some specific conditions are met. And finally, we have indirect costs that for the Horizon Europe, when you report your cost, the IT system will calculate automatically your indirect cost. But it's very important that indirect cost is only applied for most of the other budget category, for example, 25% of personal cost or 25% of purchasing cost. But for instance, subcontracting cost doesn't have the 25 flat rate. So when you put all the information in the system and then in the IT system, the indirect cost will be calculated automatically. So as I was explaining in the previous slides, we have direct cost and indirect cost, but still I believe it's very important to really distinguish and to make a distinction between direct and indirect cost. So what does it mean by direct cost? Is direct costs are specific costs directly linked to the performance of the actions, no? And it can be either costs that have been caused in full by the activity of the actions, or costs that have been full by activity or several actions, and therefore you, the beneficiary, needs to make the attribution or to have any kind of measure to see how directly you can provide the attribution for the specific actions. So if you, for example, when you perform this attribution or this measure, you use proxies, cost driver, or allocation key, this will be considered indirect cost, and therefore can not be eligible under other categories. It will be included in this 25% rate of the personal cost, 25% of the purchasing cost, etc. So it's very important from the beginning to distinguish direct cost and indirect cost when you are claiming your cost. Here, as a general remark, I would like to mention that in this presentation we will focus on actual cost. So we will not cover other type of cost like simplified option, like lump sum, etc. So we will focus more on actual cost, and then we have to make as well a distinction between the general eligibility conditions and the specific eligibility conditions. The general eligibility conditions apply to all the different budget categories or cost categories, so for personnel, subcontracting, purchases, etc. And they're common for all of them. But then each specific cost category have the specific eligibility conditions. So we can see in Article 6.1 of the Horizon Europe Model Grant Agreement the general eligibility conditions, and then under Article 6.2 we will find out the specific eligibility conditions for personnel, specific eligibility conditions for subcontracting, etc. So this is in this slide we provide the common general eligibility condition for all the costs. I will not go through all of them. There are 7, but anyway, I will mention, for example, some of them. Okay, the cost must be actually incurred by the beneficiary during the duration and the action, and have to be necessary for its implementation. One concept is very important as well, the beneficiary usual cost accounting practice, with meaning that the beneficiary should have, when reporting cost for Horizon Europe, the same approach, the same accounting practice than for other action that they may have, meaning that it's not possible to have a specific accounting practice only when they are treating Horizon Europe actions. So purchasing cost is established under Article 6.2c of the Horizon Europe Model Grant Agreement. As I was saying in the first slides, there are 3 subcategories. So travel, okay, all the trips that may be necessary for the implementation of the actions and linked to the actions, and could be covered hotels, flights, daily allowance, etc. Then we have 6.2 equipment, and then equipment I have a specific slides to explain a bit further how to declare this cost, because the general rule, the default rule is the depreciation cost. But also under Horizon Europe, there is like the possibility of claim full cost of the equipment. I will explain later. And then the third category is other goods and works and services like consumable, supplier, the other type of services that you will need in order to perform your work, your task. So again, for this category of cost, the common eligibility rules of Article 6.2 apply, but also it has to be in accordance with your usual purchasing practices, but respecting the rule of best value for money or the appropriate lowest price, and that there is no conflict of interest when claiming this cost and contracting this cost. We include these slides in this presentation because it's one of the most common errors when claiming costs by beneficiaries, is that there is no distinction between or like confuse. Let's say it's a confusion between subcontracting costs and purchasing costs. No, and the key idea here is that the subcontracting costs, when we are speaking about subcontracting costs, are those costs that are necessary for the implementation of the action. No, it's action task. Action task described in Annex 1. So you decided to outsource action task to another entity, and this entity perform this action task. When purchases are all the other type of costs, like travel, equipment, any kind of services that you need for the implementation or to implement your work, but they don't constitute an action task. Perhaps you will need it to perform your action task, but the action tasks are performed by you. So therefore, that in this category will be purchases and not subcontracting. And this has as well a legal implication, because for subcontracting costs, as I was mentioning at the beginning, that doesn't have the 25% flat rate of indirect cost, when the purchase is yes. So on top of that, on top of your cost declaration for subcontracting and for purchases, you will have the 25% of indirect cost in case that are purchases. So for equipment cost, as I was saying, this is the Article 6.2c2 of the Horizon Europe Model Grant Agreement. The general rule, by default, is the depreciation cost is eligible. No? And then we have 2 scenarios. The depreciation cost can be claimed in full if the equipment is used exclusively for the actions, but if it's not used only for that action, then we have to measure the depreciation. You have to do a portion of the type of the depreciation cost used for that specific action. And this amount, this measure, have to be auditable. So it's very important to distinguish, okay, in this general rule, depreciation cost is eligible full depreciation cost is the equipment is used exclusively for the action. If not, you will have to do a measure to determine the portion of the use of this depreciation cost for this specific action. However, the Horizon Europe Model Grant Agreement also established an exception, and that can be that you can claim the full cost of this equipment cost only if it's allowed in the call conditions. Therefore, when you have equipment in your project, we were recommending to check the provision of the grant agreement that set out the rules for equipment cost to see if you are in the default rule, which is depreciation only, or if you can claim the full cost, and therefore you have three possible options that will be depend on the provision set out in your grant agreement. Now I would like to focus especially in personnel cost, because this is the main category and perhaps the one with more financially speaking and budgetary wise more relevant for the big majority of the beneficiaries. So here in this slide, we have an overview of the different categories of personnel cost. The first category is employees or equivalent, for example, any kind of appointment act like civil servant, etc. And then as well, we have three cases. So employees with a fixed salary, which is the most common one. But also we have project-based remuneration, which is those employees whose remuneration increase when working in projects. Or we also have average personnel cost, which is employees of a beneficiary whose usual cost accounting practice is to calculate the average personnel cost. Another category of personnel is the person under direct contract. And for example, the cases of in-house consultant, that they don't have a direct contract, it's not an employment contract per se, or strictly speaking. But also we have secondary person against payment. So this is person provided by a third party. And in order to consider this cost eligible, must be fulfilled two conditions, which like they work under similar situation that those of like a normal employee, and the result of the work belong to the beneficiary and not to the third party against payment. And finally, the last option is a semi-owner and natural person beneficiary. In these two cases, they don't receive a salary. So the way of calculating the cost is by applying a unit cost, and in somehow is as well as a simple procedure, as you don't have to calculate the unit cost. The unit cost is already fixed by the Commission, so you use the unit cost provided, and then the calculation is more automatic. So here I would like to focus in the main category of employees, which is the A1, is the employee with a fixed salary. And the novelty of the Horizon Europe is that they have included a corporate formula that apply for different EU funding action using this corporate model grant agreement, like LIFE program, SAFE program, Digital Europe program, and Horizon Europe, of course. So we have the daily equivalence work on the action multiplied by the daily rate. This is a single calculation that we recommend as a rule to be done per reporting period and to be calculated per person. And this formula encompasses different parameters that is rely on the so-called maximum declarable day equivalence with the 215 days mentioned in your grant agreement. All these different components, the day equivalent work on the action and the daily rate, I will explain in the coming slides. So now go to the day equivalence work in the action, which is the first component of the formula. So how do you report or how you measure your days equivalent work in the action? Okay, so there are two possibilities. The Commission provide in the so-called funding and tender portal a template that you can download it and use it. This is a monthly declaration that you declare the number of days or day equivalent spent in the action in a monthly basis, and is signed by the employee and his or her supervisor. Also, the advantage of this template is that already comply with all the minimum criteria for the time recording system. However, the second option as well is that you already have a reliable, or you use another type of reliable time recording system that fulfill the criteria, have the minimum criteria, and that you prefer to use that. Any of the both options are good as far as they indeed provide, and there are any kind of way of measure the day equivalent work in the action. So one that we have the number of days spent in the action, we have to multiply, and we will see in the previous slide. So the formula is days equivalent work in the action multiplied by daily rate. So how we can calculate the daily rate? So here for the daily rate, we have basically numerator and denominator. Starting by the numerator, we have the actual personnel cost during the month within the reporting period. So this means all the eligible costs recorded in your statutory accounts that include, for example, fixed salary, social security contributions, taxes, fixed and variable components, as far as they are based in objective criteria and paid in consistent manner, and other type of payment linked to the remuneration if they are justified and registered. However, some other component that they cannot be included here in this numerator is the, for example, the remuneration which has not been actual cost, or arbitrary bonuses, or payment of dividends. So once that we have the numerator, which is the eligible cost recorded in your statutory accounts, we divide it by the maximum declarable days equivalent, which is a pro rata of the 215 days, which is mentioned in your grant agreement, and which is the maximum declarable days equivalent for an employee working full-time in a given year. And this is established under Article 6.2A1 of the grant agreement. So how about the concept of the maximum declarable day equivalents? The main notion here is that we have a double capping in Horizon Europe. This is a new concept that it has been introduced. And so then we have the horizontal ceiling, which is the total number of day equivalents declared across the EU grants for a person cannot be higher than 215 days per calendar year. And the reason why is because this is in order to avoid double funding for personnel when there are like different projects, EU projects. And the other capping is the reporting period ceiling, with meaning that the number of days equivalent to be declared is capped at the maximum declarable days equivalent per reporting period. So how we translated this, the maximum declarable day equivalent per reporting period? So we have again this formula in order to calculate this day equivalent working actions. So the first component, we have the 215 days that we divided by 12. This is for the calendar year. Then we multiply by the number of months within the reporting period during which the person is employee. Usually for Horizon Europe, the reporting period is 18 months. So we need to, you have to check how many months that specific person has been working for the action. And then we multiply what we call the working time factor. Could be if the person work full-time, we multiply by 1. If it's part-time, 75% or 50%, we multiply by 0.5, etc. So now we are going to the end of the presentation. So here I would like to mention that in the participant portal, you can find a reference document page where there's like different guidelines and useful documents, also webinars, etc. So we really recommend you to navigate through this reference document page that you can find this useful information, and of course to check the annotated grant agreement, which is at the end of the day the rules for all the type of cost that you may have. This as well some example that can guide you and help you in order to declare your cost and to determine which kind of category or cost category you have. But in addition to this reference document page, also you can contact the national contact point because they are more aware about the specific rule in your country. But In case that there is still some question or specific question that you may have and that you would like to check with the services of the European Commission, you can go to the Funding and Funding portal, and under the Research Inquiry Services tab, there is a list of sections that you can go and make your question. For example, we can see here in the list, grant agreement preparation, both for legal and financial issues. You should click in that one, the number 10, you make your question, that question will reach to us, and then we will provide you a reply to your question. So this is the end of the presentation, so thank you very much, and I think we still have some minutes for question and answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Miguel. Thank you very much, Sara. We indeed have some time for questions, and we have received quite a lot of questions. In addition, we have another lawyer joining us for the question time, is Bartosz Majewski. Sorry if I didn't pronounce it correctly. So let's go with the questions. First question, some applicants are asked to also register in the transparency register. Close to deadline and again simplification, why is this not included here? I don't know who is going to answer, but please.
Maybe I can try. As far as I'm concerned, the transparency register is a database listing the interest representatives, so organizations, associations, groups, and self-employed individuals who carry out activities to influence the EU policy and decision-making process. I think that this transparency register is not linked to participation in Horizon Europe. So if this condition is not foreseen in the specific eligibility conditions of the general annexes or in the specific conditions of the call, then please ask the project officer responsible for this call why there is such a need to be registering in this register. This would be my question. This would be my reply, sorry.
Thank you very much, Bartosz. Next question. Could you give examples of in-kind contributions free of charge? In which situations they are required to include in the Annex 1 and where exactly?
Yes, thank you. So maybe I can take this question. As I said during the presentation, third parties providing in-kind contributions free of charge refer to the case where there is no payment, no financial transaction between the beneficiary and the third party. A typical example, which also, in case it is useful, you may find it also in the annotated model grant agreement, is the case of a civil servant working as a professor in a public university. So, for instance, the university is the beneficiary in the project. The salary of the civil servant that works as a professor is not paid by the beneficiary, meaning by the university, but by the government, by the ministry. So, according to the secondment agreement, the government does not ask any reimbursement in exchange. But the beneficiary can still, under Horizon Europe, can still declare the salary of the professor in its financial statement, even if they are paid by the ministry. And in-kind contribution free of charge must be identified in Annex 1. So if there are in-kind contributions, usually this is normally foreseen already at the time of the signature of the grant agreement. However, as in the case for subcontracting, if the in-kind contribution was not included already in Annex 1, but beneficiaries realize that they might need it later on during the action implementation, then the beneficiaries may use the simplified approval procedure. So it means, again, that at the time of the reporting, in the periodic report, the beneficiaries have to include that the in-kind contribution, they must justify it. And also here the beneficiaries bear the risk of the rejection of the cost. So it is always necessary a case-by-case assessment, and it is the best practice is always to check with your project officer. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sara. The next question is basically the same as the previous one, unless you want to give something else, some additional reply, we go to the following one. Can the coordinator buy the flight tickets for another beneficiary? The travel costs are related to an event necessary for the action.
Yes, perhaps I can take this one. It's related with cost. Okay, in accordance with the eligibility condition of Article 6 of the grant agreement, a cost must be directly incurred by each beneficiary, meaning that to be eligible, a cost must have been defined by the beneficiary, affiliated entity, and not by another entity. Also, those costs should be foreseen in Annex 2 and connected through the action as described in Annex 1. So, in principle, travel costs that are considered purchasing costs and therefore need to be complied with the specific and general rules must be foreseen by each beneficiary. So let's say the coordinator, to reply to this question, the coordinator cannot buy the ticket, the flight ticket for another beneficiary. Also, because in the specific condition, we have to ensure the best value for money and to avoid potential conflict of interest. So if the coordinator buy the ticket, there is no this kind of the conflict of interest, and the best value for money is not ensured. No, and so basically that, and also very specific scenario. Okay, however, and the very exceptional and duly justified cases, purchases between beneficiaries may be allowed. Very specific scenario on which this can be exceptional allowed, but please bear in mind that if a beneficiary needs supply from another beneficiary, it's the later beneficiary that should charge them to the action as a cost. Otherwise, there is a risk that the grant is used the charge for commercial profit margins.
Much, Miguel. For the next question, is it mandatory that the data management plan and dissemination, communication, and exploitation plan are made public, or can we as beneficiary decide not to make it public?
Okay, I can take it. So as a general rule, the beneficiaries are obliged to communicate the project results and disseminate their activities. Of course, subject to restrictions due to the protection of intellectual property, security rules, and what we have written in your data management plan and dissemination, communication, and exploitation plan. So everything has to be in line with actually this document. And for Horizon Europe, a dissemination plan must be provided by the granting authority for monitoring, evaluation purposes that should include, among others, the objectives, key messages, and communications channels, social media, and planned budget. However, there is no specific obligation to making it public. So it's up to the beneficiary whether he wants to make his communication exploitation plan made public or not. So, yes.
If a partner cannot be validated in time, how can they be maintained in the consortium while being kicked out as partner and reinvited after validation?
I can take this question. Thank you. So, beneficiaries to participate in actions, they must be validated. In practice, even for applicants can be validated during the grant agreement preparation phase, there is a risk that the granting authority cannot respect the time to grant. So in those cases, the grant agreement would need to be signed without the participation of the non-validated beneficiary unless a justified and sufficient reason can be found. If there are no reason to delay the signature of the grant agreement, the participants have the option to access the grant agreement later on via an amendment procedure, taking into account that the accession of the beneficiary can never put into question the awarding decision, nor implies substantial changes of Annex 1. In any case, this decision needs always to be taken case by case, and remains a decision of the authorizing officer. So for these cases, we would suggest to check with your project officer. Thank you.
Time for one more question about equipment. If we enter depreciations in the proposals, can we switch to full cost during the grant agreement preparation, or even after, if the equipment is solely used for the action?
So maybe I can provide the reply, because you know the option, because there are three options possible: depreciation, the full cost, or the full cost and listed equipment. And these options are already mentioned in the call conditions. So when you write the proposals, you know what type of the way of cost eligibility for equipment would be used. Therefore, the information that you have put it in your proposal or in Annex 1 of grant agreement should be in line with the rules of modern grant agreement. So there is always information in your call, whether it's going to be depreciation or the full cost of listed of the equipment. So I would reply that usually there is no option to change, because the option is chosen at the beginning of the action.
Sara, Miguel, we have now to finalize here this webinar. And just before ending up, I would like just to remind you that the Horizon Implementation Day on Grant Management that we will have on the 3rd of April. And in the meantime, on the 27th of March, we will have another webinar on lump sum. As you probably know, all our webinars are announced in the Funding and Tender portal under Events. There you have not only the next webinars we are hosting, you have also the previous one, all the previous one with the presentations and of course the recording. So just to finalize now, I would like to thank all the presenters that have attended today. For the technical part, there are two persons that are here in the studio, Casimir Klauchent and Olivier Margan. Thank you to them. And finally, thank you very much, Dominika Kotowicz, who is managing the Slido. That's all for today. Hope to see you next time. Thank you very much. Well, I didn't mention, sorry. Thank you very much for all of you to be present here today. Hope to see you very soon. Bye.